agak dibalik gitu. Kenapa? Yang menjadi magnet utama di dalam pemilu presiden itu adalah capresnya.
Yaitu Hotman Paris.
Cocok, masuk barangnya. Jadi karena Bang Hotman belum kita deklarkan, atau si Bujang atau si Ucoknya belum. Tapi yang penting adalah satu, chemistry-nya harus terbangun. Siapa capres yang kita tawarkan itu dari 3 nama itu, lalu kemudian siapa yang mendapatkan respon yang cukup.
Kira-kira bakal diumumkan habis raker, yaitu
tanggal 17 malam.
Ya, bukan hanya sudah berulang-ulang, tetap selalu paling rendah.
Ya,
apakah masih ada arahnya mencalonkan beliau jadi wapres?
Kenapa tidak? Artinya begini Bang,
kalau capres.
Dia wapres atau capres?
Apapun itu nantilah, saya nggak mungkin mendahului Ibu Ketua Umum. Artinya begini Bang, dari seluruh berbagai survei, ya kalau kita mau tanya itu, termasuk yang menyurvei tadi Bung Yunarto, kita tanya lembaga survei lain yang kredibel, belum ada preferensi publik hari ini, ya persepsi itu terhadap yang menguat kepada satu figur. Artinya semua ini masih relatif sangat cair dan dinamis.
Bapak mengatakan tidak ada yang menguat ke satu figur. Ini orang PDIP terus menerus selalu nomor 1.
Tapi kalau nggak ada partainya?
Makanya saya tanya, kenapa PDIP tidak fokus saja ke Ganjar?
Survei ini Bang, ya ini kan potret saat ini.
Ya.
Ke depan pemilu masih lama.
Ya.
Segala sesuatu masih sangat dinamis. Ya. Bisa terjadi ke depan itu fluktuasinya. Begitu loh. Nah artinya kalau kita terburu-buru memutuskan hari ini, ya ke depan itu masih sangat mungkin yang namanya persepsi publik itu naik turun Bang. Bahwa hari ini hasil potret survei seperti ini, iya ini kan potret saat ini.
Sampai hari ini belum ada terkonsentrasi di PDIP akan mencalon ke Pak Ganjar sampai hari ini.
Surveinya salah satu variabel, banyak variabel lain nanti yang bahan menjadi.
Jadi belum ada ya, Pak Ganjar belum ada wacana serius untuk itu.
Belum.
Oke, Pak Nurdin, sama juga ini mantan klien saya ini, lama klien saya jadi pengusaha. Ini selalu rendah elektabilitasnya. Golkar masih yakin?
Sangat yakin.
Gimana yakin? Sama berdua ini selalu paling bawah.
Ada 3 faktor.
Ya.
Untuk kita memilih capres.
Ya.
Yang pertama suara rakyat.
Ya.
Yang sementara ini indikatornya adalah dari survei. Itu betul.
Ya.
Tapi yang kedua adalah suara hati kader. Kenapa? Karena dengan pemilu serentak ini, di mana ada kepentingan daripada para kader, dia mau jadi caleg, baik kabupaten kota, provinsi maupun DPR RI.
Ya.
Mau ikut pilkada, bupati wali kota maupun presiden. Gitu. Itu suara mereka juga harus kita dengar. Nah, yang ketiga adalah suara parpol. Kenapa? Karena Golkar, P3, PAN itu pasti ingin menang. Ingin menang pilpres, ingin menang pileg. Nah oleh karena itu survei bukan satu-satunya indikator. Hanya salah satu indikator. Jangan lupa Pak Pan, masih ada faktor lain. Faktor infrastruktur. Nah, Golkar, P3, PAN memiliki infrastruktur yang sangat kuat. Sampai ke tingkat RW, RT. Instrumen ini kalau ini digerakkan secara maksimal, survei ini nggak berlaku.
Oh begitu ya.
Dan sekarang ini belum maksimal.
Ya.
Ini sekarang 3 koalisi KIB ini sekarang sedang melakukan konsolidasi kelembagaan.
Ya.
Sebentar lagi kita bikin rapat kerja nasional. Kita sudah silaturahmi nasional, nanti akan ada rapat kerja nasional. Kemudian ada raker yang dibagi per wilayah. Itu melibatkan 3 partai, di mana seluruh potensi kader itu ikut, sehingga mereka ikut menentukan daripada prosesi pemenangan KIB menghadapi 2024.
Jadi masih yakin Pak Erlangga?
Yakin.
Oke.
Yang kedua, sebentar lagi Pak Mas, Golkar secara konstitusi itu memang telah menetapkan. Dan menetapkan itu Munas. Keputusan Munas hanya boleh dirubah oleh Munas. Nah oleh karena itu apabila nanti Erlangga tidak mencalonkan, maka hanya Erlangga bisa merubah itu. Kemudian dia menyampaikan ke Munas. Karena Golkar itu partai yang sangat terbuka, TBK. Gitu.
Terima kasih. Pak Jajil.
Ya, siap.
Sama juga calon capres ya yang wacana yaitu Pak Caimin juga nggak pernah masuk 10 besar. Sementara mau bikin koalisi semut merah PKB dan PKS, yakin Caimin bisa lolos?
Yakin.
Dari mana yakinnya?
Nanti gini, saya jelaskan. Jadi Pak Hotman jangan terframing oleh elektabilitas. Misalkan saya kasih contoh, di depan ini, menang mana Mbak Puan sama Pak Ganjar? Pasti menang Mbak Puan.
Kenapa?
Karena Pak Ganjar nggak punya tiket.
Ya.
Kalau dia tidak berangkat, yang menang Mbak Puan. Nah, oleh sebab itu, cara kita berpikir bukan hanya survei di bulan Mei dan bulan Juni.
Ya.
Tetapi ada banyak variabel yang harus kita baca.
Ya.
Pertama yang harus kita baca siapa lawan politiknya nanti.
Oke.
Siapa lawannya. Kalau misalkan Pak Anies nggak dapat kursi, Pak Ganjar nggak dapat tiket, Pak Prabowo nggak jadi nyalon, maka semuanya 4,1. Nah, oleh sebab itu Pak Hotman, di dalam politik karena bukan hitungan matematika murni, maka cara menghitungnya jangan 1 tambah 1, 2. Tetapi ada banyak cara menghitung di dalam politik, karena politik itu seni kemungkinan. Pertanyaannya bagaimana kalau Pak Anies, Pak Prabowo, Pak Ganjar nggak maju? Apakah Caimin bisa menang? Bisa menang.
Kalau maju?
Iya.
Kalau maju gimana?
Ya nggak ada soal, namanya juga
ada
politik.
soal gimana? Kalau maju Caimin bisa nggak menyaingi begitu?
Nggak bisa, karena ini masih bulan Mei.
Kalau maju nanti
bulan Oktober saya Uber. Ya kan begitu, karena survei ini apalagi periodisasi survei.
Caimin atau siapa lagi? Dari PKS siapa kira-kira? Caimin kan dari PKB.
Dari PKS ada Pak Dr. Salim.
Ya.
Ya kan? Ada juga Pak Saihu.
Ya.
Banyak tokohnya. Nah, oleh sebab itu Pak Hotman, jangan pernah menakut-nakuti semut merah dengan cara elektabilitas. Kita nggak pernah takut. Karena semut itu lubangnya kecil, jalannya kecil. Pokoknya asal kita bisa jalan, kita akan menang tuh.
Ya.
Gitu. Jadi semut nggak butuh jalan tol. Semut jalannya kecil-kecil aja.
Oke.
Ya ada. Yang penting menang. Nah itu Pak Hotman, kenapa kita sebut koalisi semut merah.
Ya. Oke. Memang kiprah politik ini bisa berubah-ubah, labil. Kadang A, kapan B, kadang B. Sama seperti Hotman. Kadang hari ini asprinya yang cantik dari daerah mana, besok asprinya dari daerah mana. Ya, nanti kita akan tanya arah koalisi ini akhirnya kemana sih? Ketemu lagi sesudah jeda berikut ini.
Kunyit, warisan rahasia kecantikan kulit Asia sejak dulu kala. Kekuatan alami berpadu dengan teknologi tercanggih menghasilkan Sabiwa. Dengan kekuatan 16 kali mencerahkan hadir untukmu. Something Niacinamide Sabi Brightening Serum. Mencerahkan, memperbaiki, menguatkan. Buktikan cerah alami kulitmu dalam 4 minggu. Cerah realistis, be you, be something.
Yuk kenal lebih dekat dengan Unlimited Hosting. Layanan hosting kualitas tinggi dengan harga terjangkau. Mulai dari 10.000 per bulan, kamu bisa dapat semua fitur unlimited. Performa website cepat dan stabil. Unlimited hosting sepenuhnya didukung oleh Lightspeed. Selain itu, ada Cloudflare dengan teknologi Content Delivery Network yang sangat membantu menjaga uptime rate dan latensi akses website. Perlindungan penuh dari malware protection Immunify 360. Cegah virus dan malware dari berbagai sumber. Tampilan dan pengelolaan hosting dirancang khusus agar gampang dipelajari. Bahkan oleh pemula sekalipun. Dapatkan domain dan SSL gratis. Diskon hingga 75%. Customer service kami siap membantu 24 jam. Kunjungi www.niagahoster.co.id. Upgrade sekarang.
Ketemu lagi di Hot Room, Pak Ray Rangkuti. Saya masih tetap penasaran, kok belum ada yang mencalonkan Pak Anies? Apa yang terjadi? Sama, apakah memang Anies itu lagi dicalonkan oleh Nasdem atau bagaimana? Dan yang kedua, tadi Pak Jajil mengatakan, ini sebenarnya ya permainan partai semua, bukan untuk kepentingan rakyat. Ini partai yang bermain di sini. Pendapat Bapak gimana?
Kalau soal ini sih menurut saya karena memang elektabilitasnya yang kelihatan merangkaknya lambat sekali.
Jadi?
Padahal beliau sebagai Gubernur DKI Jakarta, asumsinya elektabilitasnya bisa mengejar dua tokoh yang sebelumnya. Kenyataannya sudah mulai selesai masa jabatan, Oktober beliau selesai, tapi elektabilitasnya masih sekitar 20%. Nggak begitu jauh, cuma jadi asumsinya hanya sekitar 1% per tahun. Jadi kalau kita buat kalkulasi dengan asumsi itu, ini tinggal 1-2 tahun lagi, artinya pertambahannya paling jauh 25%, mentok kan. Nah makanya kalau ia dilamar oleh misalnya Nasdem, seperti yang kita sering dengar disebut-sebut namanya salah satunya gitu, ya Nasdemnya memang harus memiliki perhitungan yang cukup matang dengan siapa partai-partai yang akan menerima yang bersangkutan. Mengingat wajah Pak Aniesnya sendiri itu terpojok pada satu segi. Itu persoalan terbesar Anies itu.
Maksudnya satu segi apa?
Artinya wajah Anies itu dilihat orang sebagai perwakilan dari kelompok Islam politik. Nah itu kayaknya mau ditarik oleh misalnya seperti Nasdem ke tengah ini gitu. Tapi persoalannya apakah masyarakat di tengah ini bisa menerima figur Anies atau tidak secepat itu. Melalui Nasdem dan seterusnya itu gitu.
Yang kedua pertanyaannya, menurut Bapak ini PDIP ini sebenarnya bakal mencalonkan Mbak Puan atau Ganjar sih? Penasaran gue nih. Menurut analisa kamu dulu.
Kalau saya kira terbuka kedua-duanya. Meskipun sekarang kalau kita mendengar misalnya seperti Mas Hinton macam-macam itu lebih condong kepada Ibu Puan. Tentu saja karena secara struktural Ibu Puan masih ada di dalam Partai PDI Perjuangan. Tapi ini kan belum ada keputusan tadi. Nah kenapa Ganjar tetap masuk dalam kalkulasi ini? Nggak bisa juga diabaikan sekarang ini bahwa efek dari calon presiden yang didukung akan berimbas kepada perolehan suara partai politik. Pertanyaannya misalnya, 24% seperti tadi ditunjukkan oleh lembaga survei yang diraih oleh PDI Perjuangan untuk pemilu legislatif, apakah itu murni misalnya tidak membawa nama Jokowi dan satu segi tidak membawa Pak Ganjar?
Kalau sampai
itu dulu pertanyaannya. Karena sejauh ini kita belum melihat ada survei yang coba memisahkan antara PDI sebagai sebuah partai dengan bayang-bayang Pak Jokowi dan juga dengan bayang-bayang Ganjar Pranowo gitu. Kalau sebetulnya PDI, kalau kita akan mungkin bisa survei nanti, kalau betul misalnya Ganjar tidak ikut beserta dengan PDI dan mungkin Pak Jokowi juga tidak terlalu terlibat di dalam kerja-kerja PDI Perjuangan, boleh jadi suara partai PDI Perjuangan tidak sebesar itu.
Kalau sampai PDIP akhirnya mencalonkan Ganjar, menurut Bapak berarti Ibu Puan pasti out?
Ya, dengan sendirinya.
Terima kasih.
Karena tidak mungkin capres dan cawapres itu dari dua partai, dari partai yang sama.
Nasdem, Pak Willy, posisi Anies di mana nih? Apakah Nasdem memang nunggu-nunggu meminang beliau atau apa? Dan katanya kan kalau Anies itu terfokus kepada kelompok Islam tertentu, apa itu benar?
Ya, Nasdem, Bang Hotman, berpolitik seperti persis Hotman Paris.
Nah, kok jadi gua?
Ya, kenapa? Nasdem ini partai yang rasional.
Yang lain tidak rasional?
Bukan, rasionalitasnya Nasdem itu seperti Hotman Paris. Kalau memilih pasti condong ke yang cantik, ya kan? Kalau makan pasti seleranya condong ke yang enak.
Enggak, saya di warteg, Pak.
Warteg pun warteg yang enak.
Enak.
Bukan masalah tempat.
Saya suka ikan mujahir, Pak.
Ya, ikan mujahir itu pun enak. Kan? Jadi posisi politik, kalau kita berkaca kepada pilkada, koalisi itu suatu bangunan yang sangat cair. Ini fakta yang tidak bisa ditolak, Bang Hotman. Maka kemudian rasionalitas itu adalah satu potensi kemenangan. Itu yang tidak bisa kita nafikan. Bahwasanya partai punya rencana, benar. Bahwasanya partai yang punya tiket, exactly. Itu tidak ada yang
Tapi Bapak belum jawab. Ada wacana ke Anies enggak Nasdem ini?
Nasdem ini 3 nama aja belum diumumkan. Makanya butuh kesabaran untuk kemudian apa? Ini kan bukan ojo ke susu ini kan. Kata pesan Pak Jokowi kan. Nah, karena rasionalitas politik itulah Nasdem tidak ingin hanya kemudian satu sisi bagaimana survei sebagai variabel itu kita pertimbangkan, tapi juga tidak terjebak dengan namanya kesepakatan dan musyawarah yang kita bangun berdasarkan koalisi. Nasdem kalau tadi PDI Perjuangan kata Bung Masinton sudah punya boarding pass, ini tiketnya baru separuh, Bang.
Kenapa separuh?
Ya, baru 10%-nya. Syaratnya kan 20%. Nah, maka kemudian di sini yang menjadi pengantin inilah yang kemudian memiliki daya tarik. Kita umumkan pengantinnya, baru kemudian kita susun koalisi. Nah, siapa yang akan dicapreskan oleh Nasdem? tentu harus sebangun dan sejalan dengan aspirasi publik.
Ya.
Nah, survei-survei adalah salah satu variabel yang objektif dan saintifik. Itu nggak boleh kita deny. Objektif dan saintifik.
Jadi survei itu tidak boleh didinai.
Ya iyalah.
Jadi Anda mau mengatakan bahwa Pak Puan sama Pak...
Oh, itu bukan domain saya. Saya ingin mengatakan survei.
Kan Anda bilang ini objektif.
Itu dalam perspektif saya bahasanya
Bung Willy
survei.
mau mengatakan antara mau melihat survei itu dengan kacamata rasional
Ya.
atau semata-mata dengan kaca emosional.
Bukan.
Kalau
Gini.
dalam hal ini saya lihat misalnya ya PKB dengan PDI Perjuangan mau melihat survei itu sebagai bahan yang emosional.
Ya.
Oh bisa kita
Tar
kejar
dulu,
kok.
tar dulu, saya
Bisa
jawab,
2%
saya jawab.
ke 30% bisa dikejar.
jawab.
Jadi
kalau
gini,
itu.
Bang Hotman. Politik kita itu harus satu rasional, yang kedua saintifik. Rasionalitas itu apa? Satu, bagaimana kesyaratan koalisi itu dipenuhi. Yang
Ya.
kedua, sejauh ini kita belajar dari pengalaman yang sudah baik pilkada ataupun pilpres. Kenapa Pak Jokowi dimajukan? Karena rasionalitas dan saintifiknya sangat tinggi. Bang Hotman, rasionalitas politik itu nggak akan kemana-mana. At the end, seperti Bang Hotman, cenderung mata yang cantik. Bagaimana kemudian mau lari ke yang lain? Karena apa? Psikologis mau menang loh. Tadi yang dibilang Bung Rai tadi, mau kalah pemilu. Nah, faktor itulah kemudian kita membangun koalisi dan capres itu benar dalam sebuah situasi yang musyawarah. Dan ada PR yang paling penting, Bang Hotman.
Yaitu?
Yang dibilang oleh Bung Masinton tadi. Kita harus, pesan Bung Karno itu, harus berpemilu dalam suasana sukaria dan sukacita. Kita hentikan politik kebencian dan polarisasi.
Terima kasih.
Ya.
Pak Jazil, gimana
betul.
komentar Anda tadi? Tadi Anda hasil survei katakan objektif.
Ya.
Kalau hasil survei itu ilmiah dan objektif, ya PKB sama PKS jangan mimpi lagi untuk menggolkan calonnya yang selalu di bawah 2%. Gimana?
PKB punya cara tentu pendekatan yang berbeda-beda,
Ya.
Pak Hotman. Kita di koalisi ini sudah berkali-kali.
Ya,
Dan selalu PKB di dalam posisi yang menang.
ya,
Oke. Dan ada satu peristiwa yang dialami oleh PKB ketika itu Gus Dur menjadi presiden. Belum ada lembaga survei.
ya.
Nah, artinya apa? Pendekatan yang dipakai oleh PKB selain pendekatan yang rasional itu pendekatan langit.
Iya,
Mohon maaf Pak, ini supaya bukan pendekatan emosional, tapi pendekatan langit, namanya istikharah.
Ini jadi Bang Hotman.
Nah, saya yakin kalau beliau orang
Apa itu pendekatan
pesantren,
langit?
nah pendekatan langit itu memohon petunjuk kepada Allah, siapa kira-kira yang berguna dan menang untuk bangsa
Kalau itu
ini.
saya nggak bisa debat lagi.
Nah, itu.
Silakan. Silakan.
Saya mau jelaskan
Ya.
ya bahwa survei itu bukan satu-satunya variabel yang untuk faktor yang memenangkan. Saya mau kasih contoh ya. 2012 ya, ketika Pilkada DKI Jakarta, seluruh survei itu ya hasilnya itu yang tertinggi adalah figur Pak Fauji Bowo.
Ya,
Pak Jokowi jauh pada saat itu.
ya.
Tetapi ya kalau kita mengacu pada survei pasti kita dukung Pak Fauji dong.
Ya.
Tapi apa? Ada variabel lain yang menjadi pertimbangan kita untuk mencalonkan Pak Jokowi saat itu. Dan kemudian gerak seluruh elemen kader partai mampu menyatukan dengan langgam dinamika gerak masyarakat. Maka kita bisa membalik hasil survei itu.
Oke, saya
Begitu.
setuju.
Jadi survei itu bukan satu-satunya.
Saya setuju dengan Bapak kasih contoh Pak Jokowi karena memang dia punya ciri-ciri khas yang dikagumi rakyat saat itu, sederhana dan sebagainya. Pertanyaan saya, apakah ciri-ciri khas di Pak Jokowi itu dimiliki oleh Puan?
Ini
Itu dia.
jadi begini Bang, ya tiap orang itu karakteristik.
Tolong dijawab dulu.
Ya beda, ya saya dengan Bang Hotman pasti berbeda, saya dengan ini pasti berbeda.
Jadi
itu
ada yang nggak
nggak ada
kira-kira
yang bisa sama.
Nggak, tolong dulu dijawab. Ada yang nggak minimum mendekati ciri-ciri khas Jokowi
Yang membuat publik terpesona
yang
pada
membuat
Jokowi.
publik terpesona, apa yang membuat publik terpesona terhadap Ibu Puan? Tolong dijawab fokus dulu.
Ya Pak, pertama ya Mbak Puan ini orang yang memiliki latar belakang cukup. Ya, dia di kader. Beliau di kader nih.
Enggak.
Beliau juga pernah punya track record kepemimpinan ini. Baik di partai, pernah jadi Menko, sekarang ketua DPR RI perempuan pertama. Ya,
Ya,
itu
pertama.
dari aspek leadership.
Oke.
Nah, kemudian punya karakter kuat.
Enggak,
Orang
ketua
yang nggak
DPR
mudah-
pertama kan karena partainya hebat kan?
Apa?
Dia lolos jadi ketua kan gara-gara PDIP-nya besar kan?
Lah iya memang itu PDI.
Oke.
Ya tapi apa? Partai memberikan kepercayaan kepada Mbak Puan.
Ya, oke.
Karena apa? Karena sekedar
Cepetan belanja di Gemar, nggak pakai lama.
karena memang beliau
Tapi ciri khas yang mendekati Pak Jokowi apa?
setiap orang beda, Bang. Jangan nggak bisa disamakan. Keliru kita kalau
Oke, kalau gitu gini aja deh.
kita keliru kalau mempersamakan satu orang dengan satu model kepemimpinan.
Makanya
Nggak bisa.
mungkin begini, Bang.
Betul.
Mau kita
Berani nggak PDIP mencalonkan daripada musik-musik kan karena sudah punya kartu, udah melebihi 20%.
Terus
Langsung aja Ganjar presiden, Puan wapres. Kenapa nggak berani?
Ini yang membedakan, Bang.
Ya,
Ya, Bu Mega itu selalu melihat dalam aspek kepentingan bangsa.
yaitu
Beliau tidak melihat ya survei itu sebagai satu-satunya gitu. Banyak variabel lain. Itu tadi rekam jejak kepemimpinan, prestasi, terus kemudian leadership, ya, karakter kepemimpinan.
Ya.
Apalagi dalam situasi yang terbelahan ini, kita nggak bisa asal menjadi pemimpin. Artinya apa? Kepemimpinan yang juga memiliki karakter sebagai solidarity maker. Nah, kepemimpinan yang punya karakter lahir hanya karena popularitas, tetapi memang lahir dari
Jadi oke,
tempaan
tolong
waktu
dibikin
dan sejarah.
kesimpulannya. Apa yang paling menonjol dari Ibu Puan
Oh
yang
iya,
mendekati sifat dari Jokowi? Apa kira-kira?
saya nggak perlu menjelaskan, ya mendekat-dekatkan
Nggak
sikap
menjelaskan atau karena tidak ada?
tadi. Loh kok tidak ada? Jangan-jangan
Kemarin jelas.
apple begitu, Bang.
Betul dong, jelasin apa yang mendekati.
Iya.
Untuk
Jika
mendekati
sudah-
tadi.
Masalahnya Bung Masinton itu mencoba menjelaskan.
Coba Pak Rey,
Apa?
tadi kan beliau
Iya, makanya.
mengatakan.
Sorry.
Saya mau mengatakan begini.
Nggak bisa
Kita ambil logikanya dulu, Bung Masinton.
Apa?
Anda kan menjelaskan Ibu Puan ini dari fenomena Jokowi masuk ke DKI Jakarta.
Ya, bisa,
Dengan
gitu.
menafikan hasil survei.
Ya.
Kan kira-kira gitu.
Oh, iya.
Nah, Pak Hotman membuat kriteria-kriteria yang survei itu terlihat relevan.
Dan apa yang dimiliki Ibu
Iya,
Puan?
maksudnya dengan cara berpikir yang Anda sebutkan
Ini-
tadi kita masuk sekarang.
Sorry.
Jadi
Aku
begitu
ikuti
kita
cara
masuk ke
berpikirmu.
situ.
Bukan. Kalau saya bantah dong.
Aku ikuti berpikir, bukan bilang,
Iya.
Jo, enggak. Bapak bilang kan, Jo,
Emang-
terpilihnya tuh, terpilihnya
sorry.
terpilihnya
Sebentar,
Jokowi jadi gubernur mengalahkan semua hasil survei.
Iya.
Loh iya benar.
Oke.
Betul.
Apakah karena
Karena
faktor
ada dasar-dasarnya.
popularitas tadi?
Ya.
Apa yang membuat ininya? Karena ada gerak dari seluruh kader. Jadi jangan dibalik, bukan
Jadi
karena
Jokowi terpilih karena gerak dari seluruh kader.
Loh, gerak seluruh kader.
Bapak bilang karena dia punya pesona.
Loh kok siapa bilang pesona?
Enggak.
Saya nggak bilang
Gini, kalau
pesona.
kita bahas survei ini, Bang.
Gerak seluruh kader. Jadi begini Bang, nggak maksud saya ini kita jangan jadi upaya ini forum ini memframing satu orang gitu loh. Kita nggak bisa jelaskan. Artinya saya akan bantah ketika memperbandingkan apa yang jangan dipasang Mbak Puan harus ikut seperti pola Pak Jokowi. Yang saya jelaskan adalah secara umum bahwa faktor memenangkan itu bukan hanya karena sekedar faktor figur personal, tetapi karena ada satu
iya.
gerak mesin
Maksudnya,
kader partai secara
Terlalu kuat
bersama-sama.
PDIP-nya gitu. Oke, kita istirahat dulu. Akan kembali setelah jeda berikut ini kita akan membahas polarisasi dari partai-partai politik. Temu lagi di Hot Room, Pak Nurdin. Kira-kira seberapa kondusif nanti Pilpres tahun 2024? Dan apakah menurut analisa Bapak, pada akhirnya nanti Pak Jokowi akan berseberangan dengan Ibu Mega?
Kalau keberhasilan pemilu nanti saya optimis sekali itu dari awal dihadirkan.
Terlepas dari nanti aspek agama dan sebagainya bakal kondusif.
Justru sekarang yang sedang kita bahas di KIB ini adalah bagaimana meminimalkan daripada polarisasi khususnya itu adalah salah satu materi bahasa sekarang. Menciptakan masa terpecah-pecah dan sebagainya. Tetapi politik identitas itu tidak bisa dihilangkan, itu tidak bisa. Meminimalkan wajib, harus kita lakukan. Dan itu merupakan pencerahan demokrasi dan pembelajaran politik bagi
Yang kedua,
Indonesia.
bakal ada nggak perseberangan antara Pak Jokowi dan Ibu Megawati?
Saya punya keyakinan tidak akan berseberangan.
Karena
Pak Jokowi berkali-kali kita mendengar beliau pekerja politik.
Menurut Bapak,
kalau pekerja politik berarti dia bergantung pada partainya.
Menurut Bapak kalau Pak Jokowi minta diperpanjang 2 tahun, Ibu Mega bakal setuju nggak?
Oh, kalau itu saya tidak setuju. Jangan
setuju
Ibu Mega. Sangat tidak setuju kalau ada perpanjangan. Soal itu melanggar konstitusi.
Terima kasih. Pak Masinton.
Pertanyaan nakal apa lagi?
Pak Masinton, sama pertanyaan saya. Ini kalau Jokowi sama Ibu Mega bakal berlanjut enggak ini hubungan mesra? Karena belakangan ini sudah mulai di media massa sudah mulai diisukan ada sesuatu.
Ya kan mesra lagi tuh. Ya. Kemarin kan ada pertemuan di BPIP. Ya. Kemudian peresmian Masjid At-Taufik, Masjid PD Perjuangan.
Bapak ada melihat nggak Pak Jokowi kira-kira mendukung yang bukan Ibu Puan?
Ya Pak Jokowi kan PDI Perjuangan.
Ya.
Pasti beliau memahami
Tapi
mekanisme keorganisasian.
Trennya kok ke arahnya Pak Ganjar dia?
Ya itu kan kata kita kan. Itu kan persepsi kita terhadap.
Jadi menurut analisa Bapak, Pak Jokowi masih tetap ke Puan bukan ke Ganjar?
Artinya Pak Jokowi itu akan ngikut pada keputusan partai. Keputusan Ibu Mega tentunya nanti.
Terima kasih.
Bahwa siapapun nanti yang akan diputuskan pasti beliau ikut keputusan Bu Mega nanti.
Jajil, apa analisa Bapak nanti akan ada polarisasi aspek agama, aspek ini atau bagaimana? Akan kondusif nggak tahun 2024?
Pertama yang paling penting aspek ekonomi.
Karena
dunia sudah mengumumkan minggu yang lalu itu kita sedang resesi, dunia sedang resesi.
Iya benar, Amerika parah-parahnya sekarang.
60 negara bakalan bangkrut. Artinya pemilu 2024 itu dalam situasi ekonomi yang kurang bagus.
Terus apa yang
oleh sebab itu biasanya kalau ekonomi kurang bagus itu muncul kriminalitas. Oleh sebab itu pada Pilpres 2024 jangan sampai ada percikan kecil yang kaitannya dengan politik identitas yang menguat.
Tapi kan PKB sama PKS yang punya massa paling banyak dari kelompok
Makanya
Islam.
saat ini kita sedang membangun hubungan yang kata Pak Ray tadi, beliau ragu-ragu apa bisa saling berkomunikasi
Jadi PKS tidak akan membakar gitu kan?
Ya,
membakar emosi.
Kita berharap setelah PKB bersama PKS jadi adem gitu kan? PKS bersama PKB sedikit biasa kan? Kan itu menambah irama masa tidak destruktif.
Pak Willy,
ya.
Menurut Bapak di mana posisi ini maksudnya Pak Ibu Mega sama Pak Jokowi yang tiga ini?
Ya. Posisinya
katanya ini tiga-tiganya adalah kingmaker.
Bang Surya itu teman
curhat tapi dia punya lobby-lobby dari mulai dulu waktu SBY pertama kali terpilih, beliau saya lihat sendiri udah duluan di rumah Pak SBY waktu pertama kali Pak SBY terpilih.
Karena satu
di sana di Cikeas waktu itu, karena saya aku antri dia langsung masuk gitu.
Bang Surya tidak menjadikan Partai Nasdem sebagai handicap. Bang Surya tidak mau jadi capres. Bang Surya hanya ingin membuka ruang.
Kingmaker.
Bukan kingmaker. Itu yang harus kita lihat. Jadi siapapun yang memiliki kapasitas, yang memiliki kemampuan, yang memiliki elektabilitas, kita harus dorong.
Apakah Anda sependapat bahwa tidak mungkin
proses bersatu atau tidak, ini suatu hal yang niscaya.
Sampai sekarang masih retak?
Enggak, gini. Abang harus ingat, ketika Nasdem baru pertama bergabung, didatangi adalah kantor PDI Perjuangan.
Ya.
Waktu hasil Perjuangan tidak cukup mengusung Pak Jokowi jadi calon presiden.
Ya.
Abang, saya jadi saksi langsung mendampingi Pak Surya. Bu Mega tengah malam telepon, Bang. Bang Surya besok sibuk? Tidak. Saya titip pesan melalui Cahyo, Andi, dan Hasto. Besok bawa pesan ke Bang Surya. Apa pesannya? Bang Surya, apakah Nasdem bersedia kita sama-sama mengusung Presiden Jokowi? Salaman langsung. Nah, cuma Bang Surya orang yang mengedepankan rasionalitas politik.
Ya.
Apa itu artinya? Satu, siapa potensi yang memiliki kemenangan yang cukup probabilitinya besar.
Dan Anda dan sampai sekarang sudah tahu siapa?
Belum, ini 3 nama besok kita akan.
Oke, mudah-mudahan nomor 3 Hotman Paris ya.
Cocok.
Ya.
Yang terakhir adalah
Ya, gimana?
Kalau kita
PR yang
pikir
abang
juga,
pertanyakan
mudah-mudahan Pak
tadi.
Muhaimin masuk juga.
Ya,
di situ.
Muhammad
Ya,
juga.
ya.
Gimana? Sebelum saya tanya ke Pak Rey, cepat.
Poinnya adalah tadi bagaimana kalau ini kembali bervis-a-vis hanya cuma 2 calon.
Ya.
Semakin banyak calon,
Ya.
publik akan memiliki banyak alternatif dan pembelahan bisa kita longgarkan.
Terima kasih.
Ini poinnya.
Pak Rey.
Kufta aja lebih hemat.
Jokowi, Megawati, sama Surya Paloh kira-kira ini. Pak Prabowo, ini kira-kira 4 ini siapa lawan siapa nih? Yang kedua, kalau rakyat menginginkan calon ini, apakah bisa mengenyampingkan keinginan partai?
Ya, saya mau katakan itu, Bang. Artinya 4 orang ini akan dipisahkan oleh siapa calon mereka nantinya.
Akan dipisahkan
Oleh siapa calon mereka?
Akan dipisahkan. Dia ada kemungkinan Jokowi.
Akan kemungkinan Jokowi bisa berbeda dengan Ibu Mega.
Ya.
Kalau kemudian pilihan-pilihan mereka juga berbeda.
Ya.
Karena setiap orang tidak memikirkan apa yang terbaik bagi orang lain, tapi yang terbaik bagi dirinya.
Benar.
Pak Jokowi punya sekian agenda yang menurut saya beliau ingin memastikan bahwa agenda-agenda itu tetap terlaksana 2024 yang akan datang.
Ya.
Misalnya soal IKN yang sampai sekarang progresnya belum begitu bagus.
Ya.
Sehingga dengan begitu Pak Jokowi punya kepentingan bagaimana IKN ini pasca 2024 akan tetap terlaksana.
Caranya gimana menurut Anda?
Ya, makanya
Perpanjang 2 tahun atau?
kalau perpanjang 2 tahun kita sudah setuju.
Ya.
Tidak dibolehkan kan.
Ya.
Nah, oleh karena itu mungkin beliau akan cari figur yang lain.
Oke.
Figur yang
Kingmaker berarti.
Ya, figur yang lain dan saya kira beberapa tindakan Pak Jokowi akhir-akhir ini memperlihatkan bahwa dia memang sedang berbeda dengan Ibu Mega.
Sedang berbeda dengan Ibu Mega. Contohnya apa?
2 kali hadir pada namanya deklarasi Projo.
Ya.
Di mana dalam deklarasi Projo itu semangatnya sudah mendukung Pak Ganjar.
Oke.
Secara umum ya, kita lihat gitu.
Ya.
Pak Ketua Projo juga datang di dalam pendirian KIP.
Ya.
Makanya orang sekarang menduga bahwa KIP itu sebetulnya salah satunya dipersiapkan untuk salah satunya kendaraan politiknya Pak Jokowi.
Ya.
Entah siapa nanti akan disodorkan oleh Pak Jokowi.
Ya.
Oleh karena itu, dan kita lihat sekarang, hampir banyak di orang PDI Perjuangan itu yang terus-menerus
Kalau
menyerang
itu
Ganjar
persepsi
Pranowo.
Ya.
Persepsi saya secara sedikit.
Iya.
Ini persepsi
Ya,
memang. Persepsi. Ya.
Terus
Jadi kehadiran Projo itu tidak
mengejar
identik
Ganjar
dengan
Pranowo.
itu untuk kendaraan politik.
Oke, terus menerus Ganjar Pranowo kan. Nah pertanyaannya, kenapa PDI Perjuangan terlihat begitu bersemangat terus-menerus menyerang Ganjar Pranowo, sementara ada begitu banyak calon
Menyerang?
presiden. Menyerang Ganjar Pranowo.
Anda mengatakan PDIP menyerang Ganjar Pranowo?
Banyak. Misalnya ada yang menyebut Ganjar itu tidak berprestasi lah, apalah, macam-macam dan seterusnya itu kan. Termasuk Bung Masinton malam ini.
Tujuannya apa itu?
Kita mau lihat kerangka yang abang-abang tanyakan tadi.
Kita tidak pernah menyerang ya. Kita nggak pernah menyerang. Apa yang kita sampaikan kan fakta. Kalau
Iya.
kan beda lagi.
Iya, fakta ini Anda pergunakan sekarang untuk mengatakan bahwa Ganjar itu nggak layak. Kira-kira begitulah. Yang kita mau katakan itu bukan di situnya, Bu Masinton. Yang kita mengatakan itu kenapa orang PDI Perjuangan
dan juga
terlihat begitu bersemangat.
Dan sorry, bukan tidak layak loh. Salah juga nanti Rai. Maksud saya tuh kita jangan buru-buru membuat kesimpulan lah. Persepsi ini kan juga karena ini ditonton publik. Kita ya kebiasaan di PDI Perjuangan itu kita solid sebagai kader. Tapi juga kita saling mengingatkan antar kader.
Secara terbuka menyatakan kurang berprestasi itu termasuk strategi yang baik dari partai?
Ya itu bukan partai, itu pendapat dari kader kok. Partai kan belum ada ngambil satu keputusan.
Iya, ada
partai ya teman-teman harus lihat.
Ya,
PDI Perjuangan ini partai yang terbiasa dalam satu baris komando.
Ya, itu makanya
menurut Bapak, Ganjar sudah 10 tahun di Jawa Tengah ya?
Iya, di Jawa Tengah.
Apakah menurut PDIP dia kurang berprestasi selama 10 tahun di Jawa Tengah jadi gubernur?
Ada pendapat yang menyatakan seperti itu.
Ada pendapat.
Ya, artinya bukan pendapat partai secara
Bapak pribadi
umpama
sebagai halak kita
relasinya dengan partai di Jawa Tengah.
Bapak pribadi gimana? Bapak kan jago kritik. Bapak pribadi benar nggak bahwa Ganjar itu tidak berprestasi selama 10 tahun? Biasanya orang Batak berani loh. Coba yes or no?
Biasa aja.
Biasa aja.
Biasa aja. Kalau mau kita bicara prestasi ya biasa aja gitu loh.
Jadi menurut Bapak
itu bukan kata saya tapi juga kata
pribadi,
kepala daerah yang di Jawa Tengah gitu lah, ada bupati,
kalau
ada
yang
wali
kedua,
kota.
Kalau begitu
kader.
menurut Bapak pribadi lebih layak Ibu Puan daripada Ganjar untuk capres. Menurut Bapak pribadi loh, bukan partai.
Kalau saya pribadi kalau saya pribadi memperbandingkan dalam karakteristik kepemimpinan, saya lebih ke Puan dong.
Ke Puan ya?
Iya memang dikader kalau itu.
Itu yang kita,
gitu loh.
Itu yang kita sebutkan tadi Bung Masinton.
Bukan berarti kemudian kita menafikan kader yang lain.
Jadi kalau Ganjar dibaca partai lain nggak apa-apa ya?
Apa?
Kalau Bapak mengatakan lebih pantas Puan daripada Ganjar. Kalau Ganjar dibaca oleh Golkar atau oleh semut merah, gimana?
Ya kalau ada begini Bang.
Itu Ganjar kurang berprestasi apa itu bukan menyerang?
Ya bukan.
Itu apa dong?
Ya, kami saling mengingatkan.
Mengingatkan.
Ya biasa saya juga diingatkan sama kader ya karena belum pernah berpartai.
Itu soal bahasa.
Ini persoalan rumah tangga Pak Hotman. Jadi ini persoalan rumah tangga yang
gitu
menurut
loh,
saya.
yang orang tidak semua tahu memahami karakteristik di dalam masing-masing organisasi. Itu harus dihormati. Kemudian kalau kami saling mengingatkan ya, karena kami punya mekanisme organisasi yang diputuskan melalui keputusan forum kongres, forum tertinggi. Umpama apa mengenai calon presiden itu keputusan oleh ketua umum. Artinya sebelum diputuskan jangan ada dulu yang sudah merasa paling dicalonkan. Kira-kira gitu.
Pak Rey, ini pertanyaan terakhir.
Siap.
Kira-kira Pilpres 2024 bakal kondusif nggak? Bakal terjadi nggak demo besar?
Saya pribadi sedang dengan koalisi-koalisi ini, yang umumnya koalisi ini mengatakan kami tidak setuju dengan penggunaan politik identitas. Itu menurut saya kemajuan yang cukup bagus. Saya kira faktor utama terjadinya konflik dalam 2024 itu datang dari politik identitas. Jadi kalau ada partai di sini yang sudah yang tergabung dalam koalisi, yang isunya adalah menolak politik identitas, hatta termasuk Nasdem sekalipun sudah menyebutkan itu satu kemajuan yang kita harapkan mencegah terjadinya konflik pada 2024.
Apa prediksi Bapak kondusif atau enggak 2024?
Kalau partai-partai ini betul-betul konsisten dengan tidak mempergunakan isu identitas itu, saya yakin kita akan kondusif 2024 yang datang.
Terima kasih. Kita akhiri diskusi kita malam ini. Terima kasih kepada semua para narasumber yang hadir malam ini. Dan kepada para pemirsa jangan lupa nonton Hot Room di Metro TV tiap hari Rabu jam 10 malam.
Metro TV.
Ya, Rakernas Partai Nasdem diwarnai berbagai usulan nama calon presiden 2024 di antara sejumlah nama sosok nama Gubernur DKI Jakarta Anies Baswedan mendapat dukungan mayoritas DPW Nasdem, disusul nama Gubernur Jawa Tengah Ganjar Pranowo. Siapakah calon presiden pilihan Nasdem dan akan kemana arah koalisi Partai Nasdem? Kita akan diskusikan pada malam hari ini tepat di hari kedua Rakernas Partai Nasdem. Bergabung dari arena Rakernas ada Bang Willy Aditya, Ketua DPP Partai Nasdem yang juga Sekretaris dari Rakernas Nasdem kali ini. Selamat malam Bang Willy, apa kabar?
Alhamdulillah sehat, Bung Reinhardt sehat.
Baik, sehat semuanya. Terima kasih Bang Willy sudah meluangkan waktu di tengah arena Rakernas hari ini. Juga bergabung Pak Jayadi Hanan, Direktur Eksekutif Lembaga Survei Indonesia. Selamat malam Pak Jayadi, apa kabar?
Selamat malam Reinhardt, sehat?
Ya, sehat. Baik, terima kasih. Saya akan langsung ke Bang Willy Aditya. Seluruh DPW, Bang Willy sudah mengusulkan nama calon presiden, ada boleh lebih dari 2 nama ya. Yang paling banyak ada 32 dari 34 DPW mengusulkan nama Pak Anies Baswedan. Kemudian terbanyak kedua adalah Gubernur Jawa Tengah Ganjar Pranowo 29 DPW. Kemudian nama Menteri BUMN Erick Thohir dengan 16 suara dari DPW dan juga Panglima TNI Andika Perkasa 13 suara dari DPW. Setelah DPW semuanya mengusulkan nama-nama, bagaimana DPP atau steering committee akan menggodok nama-nama yang sudah diusulkan oleh kader Nasdem se-Indonesia ini, Bang Willy?
Ya, terima kasih Bung Reinhardt, Bung Jayadi. Kami masih melakukan sidang komisi, nanti jam 22.30 baru akan dilangsungkan sidang pleno untuk mengerucutkan 3 nama. Ini memang mekanismenya bukan voting, Bung Reinhardt, jadi kami tidak hitung biji mana yang terbanyak lalu kemudian otomatis akan direkomendasikan, tidak. Tapi variabel-variabelnya seperti yang ditegaskan oleh Pak Surya Paloh dalam pidato politik tadi malam, tentu variabel kualitatif juga menjadi pertimbangan kami. Bagaimana jejak rekam, bagaimana visi kebangsaan, bagaimana chemistry dan lain-lain sebagainya, ini menjadi catatan kami. Nah, nanti baru kemudian kami akan menyelesaikan 3 nama untuk diserahkan kepada Ketua Umum. Besok hari baru akan disampaikan secara terbuka oleh Ketua Umum dalam penutupan Rakernas siapa 3 nama yang akan menjadi calon presiden Partai Nasdem. Tentu aspirasi-aspirasi yang disampaikan oleh teman-teman DPW itu berdasarkan jaring yang sudah mereka tangkap dari wilayah ya. Ya, tapi kita tidak menafikan, Pak Surya menegaskan Nasdem adalah partai yang rasional selama ini. Jadi tentu hasil-hasil survei menjadi pertimbangan juga bagaimana kami menentukan calon presiden Partai Nasdem. Begitu Bung Reinhardt.
Baik, jadi di antara paling tidak 4 nama ini, meskipun ada nama-nama lain tadi yang disebutkan juga ya Bung Willy, ada Gubernur Jawa Timur. Jadi di antara nama Pak Anies, Pak Ganjar, Pak Erick Thohir dan juga Pak Andika Perkasa akan ada 1 nama yang kemudian dibuang sehingga mengerucut menjadi 3. Dan itu pertimbangan kualitatif di antaranya apa yang paling utama? Apakah survei kah, apakah rekam jejak atau apa Bung Willy?
Ya, tentu tidak ada yang terbuang, Bung Reinhardt. Prosesnya kami lakukan secara musyawarah ya. Nasdem tahu persis semua potensi anak-anak bangsa ini dan fungsi Nasdem hanya menjadi jembatan untuk kemudian mempromosikan. Sedari awal niatan dari Partai Nasdem yang disampaikan oleh Pak Surya Paloh tadi malam adalah ingin melakukan demokratisasi dalam proses kandidasi. Bahwanya setiap orang di Republik ini memiliki equal right dalam proses memajukan dirinya di dalam berkontestasi, khususnya di dalam pilpres. Tapi ruang yang terbatas, kami tidak jadi menghelat konvensi. Nah, 3 nama itu nanti memang preferensi yang disampaikan oleh Ketua Umum adalah kami untuk pemilu kali ini tidak mengusulkan calon dari internal. Tentu variabel-variabel kualitatif yang paling utama adalah komitmen politik kebangsaan, itu yang paling utama Bung Reinhardt. Yang kedua adalah jejak rekam, bagaimana kapasitas, bagaimana kapabilitas, serta yang terakhir adalah chemistry yang terbangun dengan Partai Nasdem. Hal-hal seperti ini yang kemudian menjadi catatan dan memang sejauh ini kami belum melakukan komunikasi interpersonal dengan para kandidat. Kami menjunjung etika bahwasanya setelah kami punya 3 nama, nanti baru Ketua Umum melakukan komunikasi politik dengan para kandidat untuk kemudian bagaimana membangun kebersamaan dengan Partai Nasdem selanjutnya. Begitu, Bung Reinhardt.
Baik. Tadi Anda mengatakan Bung Willy bahwa ini penentuannya bukan hitung-hitungan jumlah ya atau voting. Meskipun fakta empirisnya 32 dari 34 mengusulkan nama Pak Anies, 29 dari 34 mengusulkan nama Pak Ganjar. Artinya kalau secara hitung-hitungan ini bedanya sangat tipis. Dari nama-nama ini mengapa kemudian sebetulnya kalau dari usulan nama ini kan sudah terlihat ya, Bung Willy, mana yang dominan, mana yang menjadi mayoritas suara yang diusulkan oleh kader Nasdem?
Iya, Bung Reinhardt, kami melakukan survei-survei dapil ya. Jadi di setiap wilayah sebelum menentukan pilihan, kami membuat edaran politik kepada setiap dewan pimpinan wilayah untuk melakukan riset dulu. Lalu kemudian itu yang banyak muncul, dua nama itu kan juga sama ya. Survei-survei nasional, pepatah bilang buah jatuh tidak jauh dari pohonnya. Mungkin itu preferensi yang dominan sejauh ini juga masuk ke dalam apa yang diusulkan oleh teman-teman. Tapi sekali lagi kami variabelnya Pak Surya semalam menyampaikan tidak juga kita harus membebek kepada hasil-hasil survei. Kita juga harus membangun sebuah variabel kualitatif. Nah, variabel kualitatif itulah yang hari ini, malam ini coba kami gunakan untuk mengusulkan, mengerucutkan menjadi 3 nama, Bung Reinhardt.
Baik, meskipun tadi saya lihat ketika beberapa DPW membacakan nama-nama yang disebutkan, yang diusulkan, ketika nama Pak Anies teriakannya jauh lebih riuh ini, Bang Willy. Apakah ini menandakan psikologis suara yang kemudian menandakan suara dari kader Partai Nasdem?
Ya, Bung Reinhardt, dari cangkir ke bibir itu banyak sekali akan terjadi. Apa kadang-kadang yang sudah di mulut bisa loncat keluar mulut, Bung Reinhardt. Jadi itu kan pepatah kampung, Bung Reinhardt kan. Nah, politik suatu hal yang dinamis, tapi kami mencoba tetap mengedepankan rasionalitas, tetap mengedepankan scientific approach dalam proses penentuan. Jadi untuk hal-hal yang ada tendensi itu hal yang wajar saja. Tapi Pak Surya menegaskan kepada kami semua, beliau membutuhkan kontemplasi. Toh sekarang kami baru menyusun 3 nama dan proses itulah yang kemudian kami mengedepankan tetap menjadi partai yang rasional, Bung Reinhardt. Begitu, Bung Reinhardt.
Baik, kita dengarkan pandangan dari Bung Jayadi Hanan. Bung Jayadi, silakan. Analisis Anda dari luar bagaimana? Dari 4 nama yang mengerucut ini, 2 nama paling banyak adalah Pak Anies dan juga Pak Ganjar. Dan Anda melihat seperti apa pola penjaringan nama yang dilakukan oleh Partai Nasdem ini?
Iya, ini kalau kita coba gali lebih dalam, ini semacam konvensi juga ya, semacam primary election. Dia memang tidak melibatkan publik secara langsung. Seperti kata Kakak Willy tadi, publik dilibatkan melalui penjaringan lewat survei opini publik atau riset opini publik yang dilakukan. Publik atau survei opini publik itu yang bicara soal elektabilitas, popularitas dan sebagainya, itu kan sebetulnya mencerminkan secara umum aspirasi publik kan gitu. Nah, dengan demikian kalau misalnya aspirasi publik itu ditangkap, disuarakan oleh Nasdem, itu berarti Nasdem sudah berupaya untuk menunjukkan bahwa mereka berupaya mendekatkan dirinya dengan publik dengan menampung aspirasi publik itu yang terlihat melalui berbagai riset yang kredibel ya, yang terlihat selama ini. Itu tercermin kemudian dari 2 nama yang dominan, yaitu Ganjar dan Anies. Kedua-duanya kan memang selama 3-4 tahun terakhir melalui berbagai riset opini publik memang dua-duanya adalah front runner yang paling depan, bersama dengan 1 nama lagi yaitu Prabowo yang tidak disebut oleh kader-kader Partai Nasdem kali ini. Itu satu. Yang kedua, kira yang menarik juga adalah Nasdem melakukan rakernas yang isinya sebetulnya persoalan internal Nasdem, tapi itu di broadcast secara langsung kan, dibuat terbuka sehingga publik bisa menyaksikan. Nah, di situ ada semacam transparansi proses dan wajar kalau kemudian Nasdem berani melakukan transparansi itu karena suara publik melalui berbagai jajak pendapat itu mereka suarakan gitu. Nah, tetapi lagi-lagi memang Yang kita bicarakan tadi memang baru bicara soal aspek-aspek yang sifatnya kuantitatif ya, aspirasi publik dalam artian elektabilitas atau survei.
Oke.
Kata Kakak Willy tadi
Ada aspek kualitatif.
Aspek-aspek kualitatif. Nah kalau kita bicara aspek-aspek kualitatif, tadi Mas Rehat menanyakan kok gegap gempita menyuarakan teriakan Anies kok terasa lebih bingar dibandingkan dengan
nama-nama yang lain.
Mas Ganjar disebut atau nama-nama yang lain. Saya kira jawaban atas pertanyaan itu adalah pertimbangan kualitatif yang disebut itu Kakak Willy itu. Apa pertimbangan kualitatifnya itu misalnya chemistry. Saja chemistry secara psikologis mungkin Anies lebih nyaman bagi kader-kader Nasdem.
Oke.
Karena dua alasan. Alasan pertama adalah Anies punya sejarah ya. Sejarah dengan Nasdem ketika Nasdem masih menjadi sebelum menjadi partai, Anies menjadi salah satu deklaratornya. Yang kedua, berbeda dengan Ganjar, Anies kader partai manapun, sehingga tidak ada rasa sungkan untuk meneriakkan dia sebagai calon presiden Nasdem gitu. Sementara kalau Ganjar kan dari segi chemistry itu mungkin para kader Nasdem itu cukup berhati-hati karena sampai hari ini Ganjar kan secara partai politik milik negara lain kan, milik PDIP. Gitu. Jadi ada chemistry yang mungkin tidak sedekat dengan Anies gitu. Nah jadi tapi kalau kita gabungkan pertimbangan kualitatif dan kuantitatif ini jadi imbang tuh. Ganjar kalau dari survei-survei secara umum itu sedikit lebih unggul dari Anies tuh, dari segi elektabilitas. Tetapi Anies sedikit lebih unggul dari segi chemistry, terutama soal hubungan sejarah dengan Nasdem itu. Dan bahwa dia bukan anggota partai manapun, tidak seperti Ganjar. Kalau pertimbangan kualitatif yang lain seperti kebangsaan, ya komitmen kebangsaan, apalagi visi ke depan, dan seterusnya, saya kira itu relatif sama lah ya. Kader-kader yang sudah muncul di tingkat nasional ini memiliki komitmen kualitatif seperti yang disebut dengan Kakak Willy itu cenderung berimbang. Itu barangkali yang bisa kita lihat dari proses ini. Jadi memang semuanya sekarang terpulang kepada bagaimana yang diberi wewenang oleh Nasdem memutuskan menjadi 2 atau 3 nama itu.
Oke. Apakah Bung Jayadi Anda melihat memang ada kebingungan atau memang Nasdem perlu sangat berhati-hati untuk menentukan nama ini karena 2 nama ini tadi Anda katakan sebetulnya masuk ke dalam masing-masing kriteria baik secara kuantitatif dan juga secara kualitatif.
Ya, saya kira bukan soal kebingungan ya, tapi soal bahwa saat ini memang tidak ada yang dominan. Baik kalau kita sebut 3 nama termasuk Prabowo misalnya, maupun di antara 2 itu belum ada yang dominan. Kita belum bisa mengatakan Anies lebih dominan atau Ganjar lebih dominan dari sudut pandang elektabilitas ya. Karena ujung-ujungnya kan penentuan dari presiden dan wakil presiden itu kan elektabilitas nanti di pemilu. Meskipun diawali dengan pertimbangan kualitatif juga. Tidak ada yang dominan di antara keduanya. Dan itu tercermin juga bukan hanya di hasil survei untuk publik, tapi juga dari aspirasi yang dikeluarkan oleh para DPW kan. Bedanya cuma 3 wilayah, jadi satu dapat, kalau mau dihitung-hitung secara kuantitatif kan, yang satu dapat 32, yang satu dapat 29 gitu. Itu kan tipis sekali bedanya. Boleh disebut sama gitu. Itu menunjukkan memang tingkat persepsi elit pun maupun persepsi publik memang saat ini tidak ada calon atau bakal calon yang dominan. Nah itu nanti akan menarik bagaimana nanti Nasdem memutuskannya. Cuman saya kira Nasdem masih punya waktu karena saya dengar jadwalnya itu kan untuk sekarang menentukan 3 nama, tapi untuk 1 nama itu kan nanti sekitar Desember. Jadi masih ada waktu untuk menguji baik elektabilitas maupun aspek-aspek kualitatif yang dibicarakan oleh Kakak Willy.
Baik, saya ke Kakak Willy kalau begitu. Kalau tadi melihat dari analisis dari Bung Jayadi ya, Bang Willy, ini cukup karena belum ada satu kandidat pun yang dominan. Ini mungkin berbeda ketika pemilu-pemilu sebelumnya. Apakah itu menjadi salah satu pertimbangan akhirnya mengapa Nasdem tidak langsung memutuskan satu nama? Biasanya kan insting politiknya Pak Surya Paloh itu langsung satu nama ini, menentukan nama capres, nama calon kepala daerah. Tapi kali ini agak berbeda. Apakah karena memang masih belum yakin karena belum ada yang dominan, Bung Willy?
Ya itulah dialektika. Time change, people change. Kalau kita lihat sekali air besar, sekali tapian berubah, Bung Reinhardt. Tentu kondisi ketika kita langsung mengiyakan Pak Jokowi dengan kondisi sekarang tentu berbeda sekali. Dan tentu setiap zaman memiliki dinamika yang tidak bisa kita copy paste ya. Maka kemudian atas dasar itulah apa yang ditandaskan oleh Kakak Jayadianan tadi itu menjadi salah satu preferensi kami dalam menentukan nanti pilihan ya. Tentu waktu masih ada, tapi bagaimana prasyarat-prasyaratnya kita coba penuhi. Ini yang kemudian menjadi catatan. Poin yang paling penting bagi kami adalah satu, ada kepastian setidak-tidaknya dengan 3 nama ini siapa yang akan kami capreskan untuk menjadi satu nama nantinya. Artinya publik sudah bisa memberikan penilaian bahwasanya kita tidak membeli kucing dalam karung. Yang kedua, ini juga tantangan bagi Partai Nasdem untuk mencoba membangun komunikasi politik dalam proses pengusungan, yaitu koalisi. Kami tidak memiliki boarding pass, kami baru memiliki separuh tiket, butuh separuh lagi tiket atau lebih besar lagi untuk proses pengusungan. Nah di sini kemudian terjadi musyawarah, terjadi kemudian dialog. Siapa yang kemudian best of the best ya, semuanya best ya. Tapi untuk proses pengusungan tentu kita butuh, kata Pak Surya, why not the best gitu ya. Proses inilah yang kita coba ya, bagaimana kemudian ruang yang tersedia, waktu yang ada untuk kemudian bisa diuji untuk kemudian mengerucut jadi satu nama. Jadi Bung Reinhardt masih ada ruang untuk kemudian proses yang sejauh ini masih sifatnya ada manuver-manuver taktis di kiri dan kanan, atas bawah. Ini yang coba kita rangkulkan karena epicentrum dari Pilpres itu kan sang kandidat ya. Nah Nasdem mencoba menghadirkan 3 kandidat. Mana kemudian sinyal yang paling besar untuk kemudian dibangun koalisi ya. Ini yang mencoba kami lakukan, Bung Reinhardt.
Oke, karena nanti akan diumumkan bulan September ya, Kak Willy. Artinya sekarang bulan Juni, Juli, Agustus masih ada sekitar 3 bulan. 3 bulan ini pun tentu akan ada dinamika politik lagi yang berkembang, baik itu mungkin dinamika koalisi atau partai-partai lain yang mungkin saja kemudian sudah mulai memunculkan nama lagi. Apakah itu nanti juga cukup berpengaruh terhadap keputusan yang akan diambil oleh Pak Surya Paloh yang nanti akan berkontemplasi untuk menentukan siapa nama capres yang akan diusung Partai Nasdem? Tapi dijawabnya nanti, Bung Willy. Kita break dulu, kami segera kembali. Baik, saya kembali ke Bang Willy Aditya dari Rakernas Partai Nasdem. Tadi kita bicara soal koalisi karena Nasdem tadi Bang Willy katakan juga belum punya boarding pass-nya. Artinya perlu yang lain, artinya perlu koalisi. Sekarang ini mungkin masih tahap penjajakan ya Bang Willy antar sejumlah partai. Apakah Nasdem betul-betul terbuka dengan semua opsi koalisi? Termasuk sebagai partai nasionalis, termasuk juga dengan partai-partai non-nasionalis misalnya, atau ada kriteria khusus yang kemudian akan menjadi standar Nasdem untuk membangun sebuah koalisi?
Ya, nah.
For an airline, but do you feel like you have a little bit more insight?
I think so, and like I'm less scared. Like I know what it means to do 4 sectors in a day, and wake up at 3 a.m. and go to work, maybe not finish until 8 because you got a delay, and I think it's gonna help me more on this. I have a little insight. I know it's different stay in the cabin than in the cockpit, of course, but the tiredness, the long day, the roster, the crew control, and
because this is interesting because you still have the bod. like you say, you love the aviation world, but you know what it's about, you know what is hitting, not only the positive and the great side, which there are many, but also that there are downsides to this. It's hard work. Like it's not, it's not just like roses and stuff. And I do think that actually does help, because if you come into this world with realistic expectations of what you will get, it's much more likely that you will be happy. That you will.
Maybe I was thinking also the teamwork.
Yeah.
Like how to. Of course, I will always have a cabin crew side of the cabin crew look on the situation when it comes to working team and with the crew.
Absolutely. So how did you feel when you went through the assessment? Was it hard?
I got ready for it because it was a while I didn't do mathematics and physics. I did a scientific school in high school back in the day, but
Hey, I'm an ex-visa officer, and I want to help you get your visa issued. I worked in consulates and embassies all over the world doing visa interviews for students and tourists just like you. I know what it's like on the inside. I know why visa officers refuse some applicants and approve others. If you want to be sure that you can get your US visa issued, contact us at argovisa.com. Click the link in the bio, get in touch with us, let us know what your situation is, what your problem is, what your plan is, what your goal is, and we can help you get your visa to the United States.
again, it was years I didn't do it, so I used a website to get ready for it. I studied, and then at the day, I guess I was prepared, like you said many times. Everyone said that good preparation is the first step to go into things. And the assessment itself, I think it was okay. Again, I was prepared, I was confident. And I was kind of worried for the simulator part because I had never done one before, but it was okay. You only need to show that you're teachable, I guess. You're not expected to know how to fly it, of course.
Yeah.
And even the interview afterwards, I was kind of nervous, but then it went perfectly fine. After stuff is great, so it was.
Yeah, but this is very good points that you're bringing up. Like, you will be nervous, guys. There's no question about it. Everyone will be. If you be thrown into a simulator without any previous flying experience, what they're actually looking for is this person teachable? Like, can I give instruction to Beatrice and she can take up on that instruction reasonably fast? Even if I know that you've never flown in whatever the Diamond, was it the Diamond simulator?
No, it was I think it was a Seneca.
It's a Seneca simulator. I know that you've never flown it. I know you have no training on it. But if I tell you to pitch down and take off thrust to achieve a certain speed, will you do it? And that's what people are looking for in a simulator assessment like that. So don't freak out. Don't be too scared. They are looking for your personality, and also how do you react when something doesn't go your way? Because obviously you will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Are you going to be reacting violently on it, or are you going to be calm, trying to take up the situation and make the best out of it? This is what they want to see. So obviously you were successful on that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And what about the training now? You're happy with the progress and how it's going?
Yes, absolutely. I just recently did my solo. I was struggling a little bit with it, but I made it. Now I'm very happy, confident.
Congratulations.
So thank you. And I can't wait to do my solo now. It's going to be these days for the permitting. And yeah, I did the PPL ground school and PPL exam. That went well as well. So I'm happy. And I'm hoping to do my skill test as well and some hour building.
Yeah.
Can't wait to explore Ireland as well. And then in September, ATPL is the big.
So you will do this the ATPL during the winter. Obviously, the
Yes.
weather is a little bit worse as well, then, so that makes
exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Should we take this baby for a ride?
Let's try.
Right, guys, what we're going to do now is something that I've actually never done, all right? Beatrice has never flown anything else than a Cessna, and I'm going to, we're going to have a look and see what, a PPL student, what kind of level when it comes to flying a 737 she's at, so...
I'm glad I'm with an experienced pilot.
All right, let's have a go.
Wind 310 at 16, everyone right, set on right. Start land 31 right. Delta 26.
Okay, do you want to give it a try?
Let's go.
Let's see how this goes. All right, so the before takeoff checklist below the line has been completed, so we would start the timing. There's no need for that now. Put your hands on the thrusts, and what we'll do is we'll stand them up to about 40%, right, to get both engines stabilized at the same.
There it is.
There it goes, yeah. And when I call stabilize, you just press toga, which is these buttons here below. So
Okay.
stabilized.
Pressed it.
Set takeoff thrusts. Let's see. I don't know, the auto throttle doesn't seem to do much, but leave it there. Takeoff thrust set. Indications normal. Okay, look outside. You keep the center line with your rudders. A little bit of right rudder. 80 knots. Checked. You see it's very sensitive when it comes to the rudder. V1. Rotate. So light back pressure. Somewhere around there.
Looks
Yes,
like
there
we
we
are
go.
going
And then
slow.
continue to pull back. There we go. Now you have the flight director, so you can just follow that. Okay. Into the cross. Positive rate. Take the gear up. 400 feet. We have heading select. There we are. So don't turn. Just keep it to the right there. You see the descent line. So the flight director, if you keep the little square there bang in the middle of the flight director,
Okay, it's going to be fine.
it's going to be fine. So now you're a little bit high. Coming into leveling off. So if you put your hands on the thrusts, you see that the auto throttle is taking the thrust off. So we're
Okay,
leveling
yeah.
off. Follow the flight director. Leveling off here. You can turn a little bit to the right. So basically, when you're flying the flight director, what you want to do is be bang in the middle of the cross all the time. Never accept anything else, because it's so fast that it would very, very quickly react otherwise. So you see, now you're descending. So we keep it there. What we actually do now is turn off the flight directors, because it'll give you a better feeling what you're used to. Okay, so we're flying now with flaps 5. You're going straight ahead, which is perfect. 2000. If you want to you disconnect the auto throttle. That's the little button here on the side.
It's always...
This one. There we go. Now there's no auto throttle anymore. So you can take off a bit of thrust. And you see, when you do that, it immediately starts descending.
Okay.
All right, so you can trim a little bit with your thumb. Trim it backwards. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to turn right, okay? Give it about 25 degrees of bank and try to maintain the altitude as you do. A little bit of back pressure needed, like that. And you're quite high on speed, so you don't have to worry about that. What I'll do as well is I'll do this. There we go. Good, getting back up to 2000. 25 degrees of bank, perfect. And keep one hand on the thrust so that you don't... If you need 2 hands, it means you need to trim.
Okay.
Okay. You see the speed is coming down now when you're climbing, so push forward a little bit.
There we go, to turn.
A little bit more thrust. Somewhere around there. Cool, keep turning. Nice. We'll get down to 1500 feet here, so nice. Keep that rate of descent that you're doing now. Take off some thrust. You see the speed is coming up, and now you have about 30 degrees to go. So you just be careful and start leveling out.
Okay, before.
keep descending like that down to 1500. Great. Good. So we keep descending down to 1500 feet. So pitch down a little bit, take off some thrust as you do. Just like you would in a Cessna. And if you look out there, you see the runway out there to the right.
Yes.
Yeah, don't look out too much though, because then you will descend like crazy. Keep this turning a little bit more to the right. Heading off a track of 090 degrees. Good. Nice and smooth inputs. This is what we're looking for. That's good. And we're soon back onto the speed as well. So you're doing very well at the moment.
Good.
But you see that it's much more sensitive. If you look at the way that you're climbing now, you want to keep it going down to 1500 feet approximately.
1500.
Okay, cool. And you see the speed is building up there, so level off.
1500, so little thrust.
About 5 degrees pitch up or so. And no, that's too much. That's 7.5, so 5 is the middle one there.
Yeah.
And about 60% of thrust should be good. There we go.
So if it's too heavy, I just...
Yeah, so trim. Whenever you feel that, trim. Put it back up so that you level and then trim away the forces. Always work like that. So you trim first, sorry, you handle it first and then you trim. A little bit to the left so we don't get too close to the runway. There we are. Good, we're descending. So
yes.
pitch up a little bit. Don't be afraid of it. No, don't be afraid of it. It's just like a big Cessna.
You have to put a little power to go back up.
No, because you have high
really.
speed.
I'm getting too close to the
There we go, pitch down again. So we put it down to exactly where we want it, around there. Okay, hold it there. And now you're on.
Okay.
You see? And don't let it go. So whenever you feel like you need to use forces, you need to trim. Okay, take off a little bit of thrust as well. There we are, cool. Right, so now, if you look out, you see we're beating the threshold there, so I'm going to start timing. We're going to go outbound here for about 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then we're going to take the gear down, flap 15, start reducing the thrust. And when we take out the flaps, you'll feel that the aircraft will balloon, it will start to climb a little bit. So you'll have to counteract that, but I'll talk you through it.
Okay.
Okay. So you're doing really nicely now, a little bit high on the speed. Don't start descending yet.
So a little less power.
A little bit less thrust, yeah. And keep the attitude going. Okay, so we come to 30 seconds there, so we'll take the gear down, flaps to 15, and I'm going to have to choose a VREF speed. There we go with flaps 30. Take some thrust off, and you see, and then continue like that. Water break, leave that. Now the 45 seconds, so you can start turning inbound, and don't descend too much, so turn right. Don't descend too much. And we keep this just turning inbound. We're turning towards final now, so don't climb. It's about 30 degrees of bank. Don't descend too much. Ooh, little bit low. You see that sink rate? We want to try to avoid that. So we keep up the pitch up a little bit. Keep it like that. We're probably a little bit low now, because we're quite far out of it. So add a little bit of thrust. We're quite low now, we're 500 feet. So you can level off there. And more thrust, because we come low in speed. And just keep turning. And look outside as well. So not too much more than that. There we go. So the trend vector here is turning us nicely onto final. So use that bank angle, approximately. We're very low now, so we keep it at 500 feet at least until we're established on final.
Okay.
Good. That's it. So keep it there. You see the runway coming up. You see we're on 4 reds there, so we want to keep 500 feet now. Start to level off the turn a little bit, gently. Take off a little bit of thrust. Still ascending, so keep it like that. And then as we're getting on to the poppies, I'm going to give you more flaps. We're a little bit low still, so we keep it there. Okay? There we can fucking low. Okay, We're soon coming back in now. You see, we're still low. That's the thing. That's the descent when we started in the turn. But you're on the final. Let's see. There we go. We're coming on to one wide there, so we can start pitching down a little bit. Now we're action for about 700 feet per minute. So I'll give you flaps 30 there. Take off a little bit, take off some thrust and keep about 700 feet per minute and start looking outside. That's a little bit too little, so we keep descending down. You need something like this, okay? About 1,000 feet per minute now to get back onto the profile. 400. You see your poppies?
Yes.
Yeah, so keep descending with this rate. Look outside now, onto the touchdown zone markings.
Yeah.
Keep it at this rate.
200.
It's looking good. Approximately like that. Good.
100.
And then at about 30 feet, we'll start to flare, okay?
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Take the thrust off. Oh, no, keep it. Keep it. There we go. Speed brake up. Reverses. Go for the reverses and pull them up.
Up.
Up, all the way up. There we go. So, speed brakes up, 2 reverses, coming up to 75%, start braking.
Braking?
Yeah, with the toes. There we are. Got 90 knots, 80 knots. Keep it on the center line. 60 knots. And start stowing the reverses. There we are. We can take off a little bit because we're a little bit high on speed. Look outside and inside. 750 feet per minute, 800. Now you're descending beautifully. A little bit high on speed, so we can take off a little bit of thrust. And as you do, it's going to pitch down a little bit more.
So.
But at the moment, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so look out. You have 2 whites, 2 reds. And don't let it get away from the center line. Okay?
Yeah.
That's 2 big corrections. So smaller corrections because you feel it's a bit spongy. And you move so fast now that you get off the center line immediately. So that's... There we go. You're about 3 reds now, so pitch back a little bit. Small corrections. And keep the center line. So don't be happy until you're exactly on the center line. A little bit to the right. You see your left of center line?
Yeah, because I was trying to use the heading on the screen,
but here it's just visual. This is just visual now. Continue. Coming back onto the center line. A little bit. You still have 3 reds.
Pitch up a little bit.
Perfect. That's it. Tiny corrections like that. 500 feet per minute will get you back on nicely. You're back on speed now as well. Nice. Great. Bang on speed, bang on the path now. Slightly right of center line, but tiny.
500.
I'm right, so
Yeah.
I should go a little left.
The center line should be bang in between your legs.
400.
So not bigger, no bigger than that, because it's going to quickly go off the center line. So a little bit right now to correct back.
300.
A little bit more right. There we go. Perfect.
200.
That's fine. Disregard the poppies now and just concentrate on getting to the runway.
100.
Okay, a little bit of thrust. There
50,
we go. Perfect.
40,
Start
30,
flaring.
20, 10.
There we go. Up. Keep it up so that you don't over flare. There we go. Speed brake up. Reverses. Remember you have to land the nose wheel as well on this thing. It doesn't land by itself. There we go. 2 reverses. And then keep the center line small, smooth movements like that. 69, 90 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots I have controls.
The controls.
When you're braking. That's it.
Wow.
Down. Easy. Yeah, but you see, like on a Cessna, when you move like that, you have a couple of seconds to control it. But here, if you start turning off, it's just going off the center line immediately. So you have to be really, really assertive with it. Like, okay, I'm off the center line, but tiny bit, I'm going to get back on again.
Okay.
The further out you do that, easier it is. At the end, if you're stabilized, everything is trimmed, it just goes down and kind of, down into the flare itself.
Even getting used to the feeling of the trim is different from that.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Wow, cool. Bye.
Right, guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then, check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentor Aviation app and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Now we have a really special treat for you. What me and Elton is going to show you now is how to deal with a rapid depressurization and an emergency descent. Okay, this is something you've probably seen in the newspapers or heard about. That's when something happens, the pressurization inside of the aircraft rapidly disappears. The masks will drop for the passengers in the back, and the passengers who would have seen this or felt this would have felt like the aircraft is suddenly falling out of the sky. And this is what we're going to show, what's actually happening up in the front now. So pay close attention to how we divide the roles. So when the warning happens, how we deal with the initial failure, how we then decide what to do, and who is executing what. Okay, that's very important. You ready, Elton?
Ready.
Okay, let's go.
Wind 31016, turn right, turn on right. Turn land 31 right. Delta 26, reduce.
Stop. Up. Mask on.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, I'm listening to you. 1.2. Yeah, I heard you perfectly. Take my function. So, you have rocket caution overhead. Pressurization at 0 differential pressure. So, rapid depressurization memory objects and kill the valve. Pressurization at 20, manual, what full hull, full close. Pressurization is uncontrollable, showing 0 psi differential pressure. Okay, remove the fan please, and let's do a emergency descent. Emergency descent. Oxygen are on. Fit out are on. And continuous. Cancel the warning.
Stupid 993, December 120. 120, Stupid 993.
Mayday. Mentor 360. Emergency descent. Recast local QNH and descending 10,000 feet.
Mentor 360, your Mayday recorded at time 1413, descend 10,000 feet, QNH 1005.
Descending 10,000 feet on QNH 1005, Mentor 360.
Okay, perfect. I want the rapid depressurization and emergency descent, non-normal checklist, please, and my controls.
Set QNH 1005.
QNH 1005 set, reading 33,000 feet, descending 10,000 feet.
Set.
And it doesn't feel like there's any structural problem with the aircraft, so I'm going to increase the speed, okay?
Set.
Aaron 5 November, flying flight level 1.
Carrying altitude warning or rapid depressurization. Carrying altitude, yes, we have the right. Ready for the collision. Now, like more of the curve. The carrying altitude exceeds us. When flight, the intermittent cabin altitude configuration warning sounds for the cabin altitude light installed and rapidly illuminate. Yes, alright. Some oxygen masks and sector greater to 100%. Establish crew communications. Yeah, we have. Pressurization mode selected. Manual. Manual. Multiple valve switch. Hold in close until the multiple valve indicates fully closed. Fully closed. If the cabin altitude is uncontrollable, passenger side. On. Oxygen fit on. Go to the emergency descent checklist on page 01. Cabin altitude warning checklist completed.
Perfect, leading into please, and I have the communication.
Emergency descent checklist. Ready for the condition?
Correct.
Condition. 1 on over does occur. Cabin altitude cannot be controlled. Rapid descent is needed. Announce the emergency descent. The pilot flying will advise the cabin crew on the PA system of intensity rapid descent.
Yep, I did that.
The pilot monitoring will advise ATC and obtain the area altimeter settings. Passenger signs on. The multi-line descent to the lowest altitude or 10,000 feet, whichever is higher.
Yeah, we checked the RSA at the area as well, 2,500 feet. 10,000 feet should be okay.
Engine start switch mode continuous. Continuous. Thrust reverse mode reduce thrust to minimum or as needed to 20 knots. Speed brake 5 to 10. If structural utility is in doubt, limit speed as much as possible under wide eye maneuvering roads.
Yeah, we discussed that. We don't feel any vibrations and like that, so we can keep it at 330 knots.
Excellent. Set target speed to MMO, VLO.
I keep 330 and we just passed 20,000 feet.
Set then approaching to level of altitude.
Can you stop it there and take the engine and the ice on, please?
Engine is on now.
Thank you. Continue.
When approaching the level of altitude, swiftly lower the speed brake lever to the down detent and level off. And thrust and stabilize on altitude and airspeed.
Okay, so we'll start doing that at 2,000 feet to go. See that? And United.
Okay.
Manchester, Mentor 360, we will be turning right onto heading on 150 degrees to keep us in the area of Manchester.
Mentor 360, heading 150 degrees approved.
Turning right, Mentor 360.
Good to go.
Check.
One to go.
Check.
Runner 1542, comes up on 121, 225. Fine.
May I continue?
Yep, it looks like they're coming out to the 10,000 feet. Please continue.
Crew oxygen regulators normal. Flight crew must use oxygen when cabin altitude is above 10,000 feet to conserve oxygen more than regulated to normal. I think we can remove the masks. What do you think?
What do you say? What they say? Does it mention anything else?
Doesn't say anything else on this one.
Okay, so the way we will do this is that I can take the controls and radio, I already have it, and you can remove your oxygen.
Yeah.
normally that, Jim. With the headset.
Speedbird 1, turn left, heading 260 degrees. Left heading 260 degrees. Speedbird 1, report that heading to London at 135, then 135. Hello.
Yeah, you're reading a 5, and is everything feeling okay? Do you smell anything?
No, I don't smell anything, and I can breathe normally. I think you can be there.
Perfect, so I'll hand over the controls to you. So we've got MCP speed, heading select, altitude hold at 10,000 feet with command A engaged. Your controls?
Control.
Your radio.
Radio. And 115, radio. 75, London at 130, Bye.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I'll take back the controls and you can complete the checklist if there's anything left.
MCP speed, heading south, 10,000 feet.
Okay, my controls.
Engine start switches both as needed. You can off.
Yeah, and what I'll do as well is since we still have the cabin altitude warning here, I'll try to get us down to maybe 9,000 feet or so.
Okay.
And my radio.
Manchester controller. Mentor 360, request further descent 9,000 feet, QNH 1005.
Mentor 360, that's approved. You can descend altitude 9,000 feet, QNH 1005.
Descending 9,000 feet, Mentor 360.
Set.
9,000 check.
Take a careful vertical speed descent here. Sorry, continue.
The new course of action is based on weather, oxygen, fuel remaining, and available airports. Use of long-range cruise will be needed.
Okay.
End of checklist.
Perfect. Okay, Elton, before I speak to the crew, how do you perceive the situation?
Okay.
How do you feel? What do you think has happened?
I think everything is under control now. Having altitude still at 10,000 feet, was descending to 9,000. We have the PNAs, everything is under control. I don't feel any vibrations on the plane.
Good.
We have Manchester nearby, maybe we can proceed there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what I'm going to do is to let the aircraft level off at 9,000 feet here, and then I'm going to call number 1 to the flight deck. That will get the passengers, the cabin crew off their oxygen masks. And I'll ask them about the general situation in the back before we give them a NITS briefing, okay? Okay. So I'll hand you the controls, MCP speed, heading select, vertical speed, command A, just leveling off at 9,000 feet. Your controls. Your radios.
Great.
Number 1 to the flight deck.
Number 1 standing by.
Okay, this is the captain speaking. I just want a status report on how everyone is doing in back. Can you see any damage to the aircraft, and is anyone hurt or anyone complaining?
Yes, we noticed the masks dropping. We noticed and heard the emergency descent PA. We haven't heard or seen anything structurally wrong with the aircraft. There are a few passengers that are afraid, and some of them complaining about light ear pains, but there's nothing serious.
Okay, that's understood. So no one is complaining more than a little bit of ear pains. That would be normal. We had rapid depressurization. We don't know exactly what reason for it was. Me and my first officer, we're going to discuss what to do. And as soon as we have the plan clear, I'm going to call you back with a NITS briefing. Is that understood?
Yes, that's all understood. I'll be standing by for your NITS brief.
Perfect. Call you back.
Okay, so she told me that there was passengers that were afraid. Obviously, they were complaining about ear pains, but she couldn't see any structural damage to the aircraft. There was no one that was badly hurt. No one is injured that way. So that means that we have a little bit of time. So the nature of the problem we know. And what do you think? What should our intentions be at this point?
I think we should try to land as soon as possible. We are at 9,000 feet. We don't have enough fuel to proceed to our destination. We decide to continue because we are at a much lower altitude. We have Manchester nearby. We can talk to them.
Yeah.
And I think it's the best action is proceeding to Manchester. The weather is fine there, so that's what I think we should do.
That sounds good. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to see what, get us a quick route to Manchester, see how much time we have. Then I'll get a NITS briefing, then we'll start setting up for the approach.
Okay, perfect.
You happy with that? So you still have the controls? 20. It's about 18 minutes, 17 minutes from now. Okay, so I'll talk to them. And we'll start asking for vectors very soon. Number 1 to the flight deck.
Number 1 standing by.
Yeah, so this is a NITS briefing. Please listen carefully. The nature of the problem is that we've had a rapid depressurization. We did an emergency descent. The intention is to go back to Manchester to land. The time is, we're looking at about 15 to 16 minutes from now until we're on the ground. Special procedures, I need you to report back to me with cabin secure. Tell me if you find any passengers that's worse off and that need medical attention. And apart from that, there's no other special procedures. So read back, please.
Okay, so the nature of the problem is a rapid depressurization emergency descent. Intention is to go back to Manchester. Time is 15 to 16 minutes from now. Special instructions is just to verify that all the passengers are okay. I'll report back if anyone is severely injured, and we'll give you cabin secure when it's ready.
Yep, that's all correct. The time is now 18:05 to synchronize the watch.
Time 18:05, confirmed.
Perfect. Give me cabin secure. We're going to give you, it's about 12 minutes to landing or 15 minutes to landing at the moment. I'll give you 10 minutes to landing, okay?
Okay, that's all understood. Thank you.
Okay, back on 1. That's all understood.
Okay.
So things to think about now as well is as we're descending now, the cabin will descend at the same rate as us. So we'll try to avoid doing too large or too quick descent maneuvers. Maybe keep it below 1,000 feet a minute, which will require us to have a little bit more track miles, but we're fairly low down already. Okay, so you were the pilot flying. Are you happy to fly the approach? Okay, in that case, you can keep the controls. I'll take the radio. I'll talk to the company, tell them that we're coming in about the problem we have, and also talk to ATC and tell them what we're thinking of doing. Happy?
Should I request vector?
All right, guys, so from here on it would be a fairly normal approach. We will set everything up and we will come in and do a normal landing. Obviously, we will probably have medical equipment standing by, so ambulances waiting for us in case some of the passengers have problems with their ears. We would probably taxi into stand and let the medical personnel have a look and take care of our passengers from that point on. But from here on, it will be very, very similar to any normal approach, really. We'll just try to keep the descent rate as low as possible to save the ear pain from passengers. Right, guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then, check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentor Aviation app and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentor and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today on the video, guys, could a passenger be instructed to land a Boeing 737-800 only by instruction from air traffic control if that was the last option available? If all the pilots were gone, cabin crew gone, and you had access to the cockpit and you were the last resort. I'm going to give you about 20 steps that has to be done in order to get the aircraft safely down on the ground. But I want to emphasize at this point, guys, that this is just shown to reassure you, the nervous flyers out there, that it's possible. It is not to be seen as an instruction. Under no circumstances be seen as such. Stay tuned.
31016, everyone right, set on. Current land, 31 right. Delta 260.
Right, guys, so first of all,
welcome up to a very empty cockpit. Okay, this is a flight that is en route between London Stansted and Bremen in Germany. It's maintaining 21,000 feet, and for whatever reasons, the pilots are gone, cabin crew are gone, and you were the last one standing. Kind of like in the horrible scenario with the Helios aircraft, where the pressurization panel was incorrectly set and it rendered everyone on board except one person incapacitated. So the very first step that you will need to take is you will need to sit down in the cockpit and take a deep breath. Okay, it's very, very important that you don't panic at this stage. So enter the cockpit, sit down in the first officer seat, I would suggest, and just look around you. Okay. Everything is calm, there's no alarms bleeping or anything like that. It's just flying the last kind of instruction that the pilots gave the aircraft before they disappeared. So now, the absolute first thing that you need to do after you've been sitting down is you need to find a headset. Okay, because you need to initiate some kind of contact with air traffic control, because I want to really emphasize this, that without contact with air traffic control and without them finding someone that can help to guide you down, this is going to be impossible. So, the headset will look like this. You put it over your ears and you speak into this piece here, like that. At the moment, when you put that on, you're going to hear a lot of different chatter from other radio stations. You won't understand what that means. It doesn't matter. The next step that you need to do is you need to talk to air traffic control on the designated emergency frequency. Now, most airlines would have set up their radio frequencies to have the emergency frequency on standby on their second radio box. So the first thing I want you to do is look down on the center pencil. At the top right corner, there's going to be a box with numbers in it. Now there is a big knob and a small knob that you can move around. And what I want you to do is I want you to set 121 decimal 5. The frequency is 121 decimal 5. In between the windows on the radio box, there is a little arrow switch. If you push that after you've set the value, that is going to make 1215 the frequency to use. There we go. Now, this means that box number 2, radio number 2 is now set up for communication, but you still can't communicate unless you have set up the audio control panel. So if you go 2 steps down, there's a big kind of panel with loads of buttons with arrows on it. So what I want you to do is I want you to press the second one from the left, VHF 2 it's called. You press that and put the arrow below it up to the mid position, up to the 12 o'clock position. This means that you now have the volume set correctly and you're now transmitting on the correct radio box. Okay? Now, if you go straight down from that arrow, there is a switch to the far left of the control that says RT or EC. RT stands for radio transmission and IC stands for intercom. What you want to do is you want to toggle that switch to the RT position, to the radio transmit. Now, when you do this, you are going to transmit on the emergency frequency. So, the emergency frequency will reach all of the different stations, the tower frequencies, the controller frequencies, and everything. So, you obviously don't know what your call sign is. So what I want you to do is you press it up and you tell them, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Say the name of the airline that you're flying for and say where you're coming from and where you're going to and that you're a passenger trying to fly the aircraft. So, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. My name is Petter. I'm a passenger on board Mentor 360 Airlines and I'm flying from Stansted to Bremen. I'm a passenger and I don't know what to do. Something like that. That will immediately go out to air traffic control and they will now, try to contact you by your name and tell you a little bit what to do. So that's step number 1. Sit down and establish radio communication. To the left of this box, there is another radio box with 4 numerical numbers in it. You can say anything. It should have a little button in between that says ATC. Now, there are 2 knobs on each side of the ATC button. If you move them, the numerical numbers will change. This is the transponder. And what you want to do is you want to squawk, so you want to change the numbers in there to 7700. Now your radio echo for air traffic control will be seen as an emergency frequency, an emergency flight, and it will be easier for them to find you. So step number 2 is we need to now get control of what the aircraft is doing. Air traffic control is likely going to want to know how far away you are from a landable airport and how much fuel you have. So what of all of these screens, on the middle screen in the bottom right corner, there are either a set of fuel indicators or, like in this case, a total fuel announced. So tell air traffic control when you see them that it's Petter again, we have 4.5 tons of fuel on board. Because that will give air traffic control an idea of how much time you have. This up here is the panel that controls the autopilot of the aircraft. You are going to want to get the aircraft down in order to be able to start an approach. If you look from the right to left here, these are the course selectors. We're going to talk more about those later on because they will be important. There's a big altitude window. That altitude window tells the autopilot what altitude it should be flying to. To the left of that, there's a heading window. These 2, air traffic control is going to want to tell you what to set in. Right? So in this case, we are flying over the English Channel at the moment. And air traffic control wants us to go back to standstill. So they will then tell you to put the altitude window down to maybe 3,000 feet, because there's no terrain around, there's no mountains around. You take this big knob up here, 3,000 feet. Now, as you might notice, there are some lights coming on. That's because the aircraft was not expecting to descend here. You can completely disregard these lights for now. So 3,000 feet, and you will see that the altitude hold, the altitude button illuminates under here. That's completely normal, just telling that the aircraft is maintaining the altitude. So, it's not descending at the moment. You're going to have to tell the aircraft to descend. And the way to do that is these buttons over here. So you either have altitude hold, which is just maintaining the altitude, vertical speed, which tells the aircraft how quickly it should descend, or the one we are going to use is something called LVL-CHD, which stands for level change. If you press that, it means that the aircraft is going to reduce the thrust and it's going to follow the speed it has now in order to achieve the altitude. So 3,000 feet, you press level change, and as you can see, the thrust is now coming back and the aircraft is starting to descend over here. So it's now achieving what you want it to. The second thing you want to do is, at the moment, the aircraft is following its track towards Bremen, and we don't want to do that. We want to go back to standstill. So our traffic control is once again going to come in and tell you, Petter, are you there? Yes. And we want you to try to turn the aircraft. Now, in the middle of the mode control panel, you have a heading. You have a window called heading. That has a numerical numbers inside of it, 3 of them, and it goes from 0 to 359. They will probably tell you to turn to a certain numerical number. So in this case, they're going to tell you to turn to heading 270. So you just turn this knob until it says 270, and once you've done that, you go down and you press heading select. So as you notice now, the aircraft is starting to turn. Okay? So the aircraft is basically doing what you're telling it now. So you're doing a great job. At the moment, you're both controlling the altitude of the aircraft and you're turning using the heading bug in a direction that air traffic control wants you to turn. Like I was saying, the aircraft is now descending, following a certain speed. It's the speed that we've told it to. Now that speed, at the moment, you can see in this window here. It says IAS Mach. So it's either an indicated airspeed or a Mach number. So if you've taken over the aircraft at a high altitude, this might show a decimal figure instead. So it's showing you a Mach number. In that case, you just press change over, CO here,
and it will show you an American number like this. Because what we want to do is we want to fly an indicated airspeed, because it's going to be easier later on when we have to start configuring aircraft for landing. So air traffic control will now come in and tell you that you need to turn a little bit more to the left, and they will tell you a new numerical figure, so 260 in this case. So you just turn that, and the aircraft is doing exactly what you tell it to. Now, you have a little bit of time here, so I would suggest that while we're en route now, descending down towards our destination and on the heading we want, you'd start to prepare yourself. So you're sitting in the seat. There will be a little H lever, a lever on the left-hand side which says H on it for hotel. If you pull that up, you'll be able to move your seat like this. Put it in a position where you can sit comfortably and you can put both feet on the rudder pedals. Okay? So there will be rudder pedals here underneath. If you can't move them, there's a little crank between that can move the pedals in and out. You can use that in order to put a good position. But just put it like that, because the reason for that is that once we get down on the ground, the way that you keep the aircraft on the center line, on the runway, is going to be with your rudders. So you're steering it like you do with, you know, one of those old like model cars that used to drive when you were small. You're just using your feet to keep the center line, okay? So keep it like that. Just make sure that you're sitting correctly. Put your seat belt on. Like that. And if you want to see more about how the pilot seat works, there's a link up here for that. Okay, I've done a video on that before. All right, so if we look at this picture now, it's going to show a map picture. It's not going to make much sense to you, so don't worry too much about that. On the right-hand side, you can see your altitude, and on the left-hand side, you can see your airspeed. It is possible that air traffic control is going to want to ask you what your speed and your altitude is. So we're continuing to descend. Anytime that air traffic control is asking for you, telling you your name, use that little button on your mode control panel that says RT, and you transmit using that, okay? There is a way to transmit using a button on your yoke, but I don't want you to touch the yoke unless you absolutely have to, because there are risks associated with that, including disconnecting the autopilot. So use the RT switch when you want to talk to them. Now, on our way in towards Stansted now, air traffic control is going to help you to set up the aircraft radios in order to do an auto land. So they are going to tell you that you need to set a couple of different frequencies up, and that you need to set 2 courses up. Those are the main things. So if we start with the frequencies, if you go down to the center pedal again, below the radio box that you were setting, there's another box with 2 windows in it. That's your radio 2, and there's an identical one on the left-hand side as well. In this case, air traffic control will going to tell you to put 110.5 on both of these radio boxes, 110.5, and push the arrow button in between that says TFR, stands for transfer. Push that so you see 110.5 in the left-hand window of both of these, okay? This means that the ILS frequency, the auto-land frequency we're going to use, is now active. The next step is we need to tell the autopilot what the course towards the runway is. And those are these 2. So they are corresponding with the 2 radio boxes. So in this case, it's actually preset because they departed from that runway. So they want to set 223 in course 2 and 223 in course 1. That way, we know that the aircraft is now set up for the correct frequency, the correct inbound course for the ILS. So now we're down to 3,000 feet. The problem here is that we are way too fast. If air traffic control asks you what speed you're keeping 286 knots here, and that is not the speed that we can use for landing.
2,500.
That's the aircraft telling us that we're 2,500 feet above the ground, which is normal because we're 3,000 feet indicated. So what you want to do now is go up to the speed window that says IAS Mach and bring that back to the value that air traffic control tells you. So in this case, we're going to bring it back to 210. The thrust levels will come back And you will see up here on the speed window that the speed is starting to decrease. Because what we need to do now is we need to start configuring the aircraft to be able to land. All right? So right now you're doing great. If you're at this position, you're down at the altitude, you're pointing the right way, the aircraft is set up for the auto land. So, next step now is that air traffic control is going to want to start to slow you down even further. Okay? So, what you want to do is when the speed has come back to about this magenta bug that you've set, that's going to be 210 knots. There's a flap lever here. These are the thrust levers that controls the engine. On the right-hand side, there's a flap lever that controls the flaps that are going out on the back of the aircraft to help us slow down and land. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take the flap and you want to move it to the 5 position. So move it 1, 2, 5. The trim will move, that's the autopilot doing its job, do not worry about that. Wait maybe 20 seconds like this, and then bring the speed back to approximately 180 knots to start with. That way you will always be safe. Okay, 180 knots. Good. The aircraft is now slowing down more and more. Now, when we have the chance here, we have a little bit more time over. There is a couple of things that we want to make sure that the aircraft is doing. After the landing, we want the aircraft to stop by itself. The way that we make sure that that happens is by doing 2 things. Above the center screen here, there is a knob called Auto Brake, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It will tell you how to auto brake the aircraft. Bring that to the number 3. The next thing is on the left side of the thrust levers, there's a little handle called speed brake. Now what you want to do is you want to lift that up and move it a little bit back, as in it's just like it's resting on a ledge. So you lift it up and then you move it back a little bit. I'll show you that again. Lift it up and back a little bit. Very little, so that it rests on a ledge like that. Okay. So, we're getting closer. Air traffic control wants us to start getting ready to intercept the localizer. Now, you don't know what that means, obviously. In this case, first of all, they tell us to turn a little bit right to heading 270 degrees again. The aircraft has flaps 5. It's at 180 knots. It's at 3,000 feet. The auto brake is set up. The speed brake is set up. Flaps are coming out. So, the next thing to do now is they're going to tell us that we are cleared for the approach, okay? And what you need to do then, and this is crucial, guys. In the middle of the mode control panel that controls the autopilot, there are 3 switches: LNAV, Morlock, and approach. In this case, we're still very far out, but in this case, what you want to do is you want to press approach. Anytime you press a button here and it illuminates green here, it means that it's a mode that has engaged and can be disengaged. Okay, so in this case, when you see approach green, then, and this is very important, guys, you need to go up, and on this panel up here, there are 4 switches called CMD, CMD, CBS, CBS. One of them is already illuminated. That's indicating the autopilot that's currently flying the aircraft. Now, what you want to do, in order for the aircraft to be able to auto-land, you want to illuminate the second autopilot again as well. Do not press the one that's already green, because if you do, that disengages the autopilot and the aircraft is now flying manually. So, you want to make sure that you do not press the one that is illuminated, but the other one. So what you want to see is 2 green lights, not 1. So, press that. Now, the aircraft is set to approach, and we have both command A and command B engaged. So, autopilot is set up. So now really, the aircraft will capture both the localizer that will guide it towards the runway and the glide slope that will make it descend. So the next things that we need to do now is we need to continue to configure the aircraft to bring the airspeed back to make sure that it is safe to land. We're still pretty far out, So at this point, you can probably reduce the speed a little bit further to maybe 170 knots or so. You will see on your airspeed indicator here some indicators, like in this case 1 and 5. That indicates the lowest speed that you're allowed to fly with the current flap setting. So as long as you move the airspeed bug above the minimum speed, the aircraft is safe and it's not going to fall down. Okay? You need to start anticipating what will happen. When the aircraft hits the localizer, it's going to suddenly start turning. Now, this is completely normal. This is something, basically the aircraft is now following a guidance towards the runway, so don't be afraid when that happens. Subsequently, it will also capture a glide slope, which means that it will start to pitch down. All of these things you have to be aware that it's going to happen, and don't let it scare you, okay? Very important. So, right now, we are getting localizer capture. So as I was saying, the aircraft is now turning. It might feel quite violent. You do not have to be afraid. This is completely normal. Now the aircraft is tracking the localizer, okay? Back at 170 knots, the aircraft is turning now straight towards the runway, and we're getting closer to a landing position. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to continue to configure the aircraft for landing. This is something we would do quite close to the runway, but since you're doing this for the first and hopefully only time, then we are going to do it a little bit further out. So the next we need to do in order to be able to land is get the landing gear down. So the landing gear is this big lever here in the middle of the cockpit. It has a little gear on it. It's easy to find. And what you want to do is you want to take that and move it down. You're going to feel how the gear comes out. You're going to hear that a large, rumbling noise coming. That's from the air rushing past the gear. And after a while, 3 green lights is going to appear. That means that the gear is down and locked. Now you can continue to take flaps into a landing flap configuration, which is going to be the max flap in this case. So air traffic control will tell you to slow down, and in that case you move the flap to 15. When you move it to 15, you go up, and remember where the speed is on the MCP. The speed needs to come back, and you see the 15 bug here on the primary flight display. Just put the speed bug over the 15. It's going to be around 155. Next thing is to take the flaps into the landing flap position. So flaps all the way down to 40 and bring the speed back to something like 145. Now the reason that you don't know exactly what speed to set is because you have not set anything up in the computer, the aircraft computer. It is not needed, okay? That is needed when we do this, when we fly commercially. However, in the situation you're in now, the aircraft is going to do a fine job even without the FMC, the computer, being set up. So the situation you're in right now is that the autopilot is flying, two autopilots is controlling the aircraft. The gear is down, the flaps are 40, the speed is back, the auto brake is set for landing, the speed brake is armed, everything is set, okay? Remember to continue to talk to air traffic control. You know, if they're asking for something, they should tell you where to look. So you should, you should get guidance from this and tell them that the aircraft is now completely set up for landing and to have all emergency equipment standing by upon landing. So we're now 10 nautical miles away from the landing runway. There's a little figure up here that is counting down. That's the DME, and you can just start to see the runway out through the window. So at this point, everything is set perfectly. We're just waiting for the aircraft to be established on the glide slope now. And once again, I want to emphasize that after landing, the aircraft will not be able to the aircraft will not be able to control itself on the runway. So you need to use your rudder pedals to just make sure that you stay on that. Doesn't matter how nice it looks, but be careful not to do too big corrections because it's quite sensitive. So nice, small corrections, kind of squeezing the rudder pedals in the direction you want to go. Try not to overcorrect. And there is brakes on the top of the toes. Don't press them, okay? Because you have told the aircraft to brake by itself. So if you press those pedals, it's going to disengage the outer brake, and the aircraft will not brake by itself. You're going to have to brake yourself. So just use the lower part of the pedals, move them in a way that keeps the aircraft going down. Right, so as you notice now, the nose is pitching down. That's because the aircraft has just captured the glide slope. So now it is flying down towards the runway, tracking the center line, tracking the glide slope, the speed is correct, everything is set perfectly now. So in essence, at this point, you only need to sit and wait for the aircraft to do the job. So let's see what happens. And as you can see, this is a very smooth maneuver. And that's because you have already preset everything that needs to be set up. So when we get down on the ground now, just make sure the aircraft comes to a safe stop on the runway. We are going to 1,000. That's the aircraft telling us that we are 1,000 feet above the ground. It's taking that off the radio altimeter that you have up here in the right side of the primary flight display. When we get down, we're just going to shut down the engines, and from there we're going to let the cabin crew take over, or let the emergency vehicles take over. So as we're getting closer now, put your feet on the rudder pedals. That's the aircraft trimming back in order to enable the flare and also to enable a go-around. Obviously, we will not go around from this. We have to get this aircraft down on the ground.
$50, $40, $30, $20, $10.
There we are. The aircraft has landed. Now we would take reverses in this case, which are these levers up here. It's not really needed in this case, because we're landing on Stansted. And as you can see, the aircraft is following the center line quite well. There's not too much wind, but I use the rudder pedals slightly here just to maintain the center line. And let the aircraft come down to a complete stop. And there we are. The aircraft has stopped. The aircraft is in one piece. You've managed to get the aircraft down on the ground. What we want to do now is we want to make sure that the emergency personnel can come and help us out. So what you want to do next is just kill the engines, and you do that with these two buttons up here. That takes away the fuel from the engines. So when you do that, the aircraft is going to be dark. So it's going to be quite dark in the cabin as well. You're going to get some emergency lighting coming up. Don't be afraid, that's perfectly normal. But you're enabling the rescue equipment to come up. So that's what we'll do now. And that sound is the autopilot disconnecting, because it was still connected at that point. So right now, you've saved the aircraft. Aircraft is down on the ground. The engines are shut off. Emergency equipment can come on, help everyone that's on board, and you've made a fantastic job. That alarm is the IRSs saying that they're on battery power. It's completely normal because the aircraft is without engines at this point. So guys, that's what I wanted to show you. I want to show you that it is perfectly possible. However, there are several steps that needs to be done in the right order in order to do so. Now, if you want a quick version of this, with all of the steps, it's available inside of the Mentor Aviation app. Okay? So you can download it if you want to keep it on your phone, if it feels if you're a nervous flyer and you feel like you want to have a guide like this with you, well, then that's available inside of the Mentor Aviation app. You can download the app for free. The video is going to cost a few euros because it costs a bit to produce, but you can get it and you can take it with you, okay? If you like videos like this, make sure that you've subscribed to the channel and that you have highlighted the notification bell. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then, check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentor Aviation app and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentor and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. So at the end of the video, guys, I'm going to give you a rare glimpse of the 737 MAX cockpit. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the 737 MAX and when I think it's going to get back into service again. So stay tuned.
131016, everyone right, right, all right. Third line, 31, Delta 216,
Right, guys, so there is a constant flood of news coming out regarding the 737 MAX, and sometimes it can be a little bit hard to understand what is actually big new news and what is just the same old news being kind of recirculated all over again in the press. So lately, the only thing that we really know is that Boeing still have not released the 737 MAX into service. And the biggest news that came out last week was that EASA had published a list of things they wanted Boeing to do before they would consider lifting the grounding of the 737 MAX in Europe. Now, one of the things in there was something that we hadn't heard anything about before, which was a concern that under certain circumstances the 737 MAX was a bit slow on releasing the autopilot, and disengaging the autopilot. Now, I don't think that in reality is such a big thing. I think it's just a part of the ongoing investigation and the ongoing software update that Boeing has to do. But it's still one of these new things, and the only thing we do know is that Boeing has pushed forward the release of the MAX from what they originally said, which was going to be towards the end of the summer in August. Now they're talking more about December, maybe Christmas. So what do I think? Well, I think essentially that Boeing knows exactly what they need to do in order to get this aircraft back flying again. But I know that they're working hard, and I think that they're working very, very hard to make sure that all the authorities out there in the world, be it EASA, the FAA, the Canadian authorities, the Chinese authorities, Indian, Australian, all of the African countries, that all of these authorities are happy to release the aircraft into service. And that takes a lot of diplomacy. It takes a lot of work to make sure that all of their lists are being ticked off. And there is no way that Boeing is going to, try to get the MAX released to fly only in a few countries and have it still grounded in others. So that is likely what's taking the most time at the moment, is to make sure that when they do release it, when the grounding stops, that it's going to be released all over the world at the same time. There will be no question about the aircraft as being safe once it starts flying again. So let's have a look at what the main differences are between the 737-800 cockpit that I've showed you during the last few videos and the MAX. Now, I'm not going to go into great technical detail here. I'm just going to show you the more obvious things, and then you can, as always, go into the Mentor Aviation app and talk to me and ask more specific questions in there. That's why I have the app for. So if you don't have the app, make sure that you go in now and that you download it. Free links down here below, and let's continue the discussion in there. So the first thing that you immediately notice when you get into the 737 MAX cockpit is a few things. First of all, you realize that the overhead panel looks exactly the same like it's done on the 737 model, basically from the 60s and forward. Still the old type of switches, it looks very much the same, it's in the same order, with only a few new things, like for example the elevator jam landing assist, and there are some lights in here that have changed color and changed text. But apart from that, it's very much just like it's always been. Now, one thing that I see immediately in here is that where we used to have an APU EGT meter over here, it's now empty. So that has moved down into a new system which you can access through these huge new screens and through a new info button that you have down here, but more about that later. The real thing that really catches everyone's eyes is, of course, these 4 huge wide screens. Okay, so let's have a look at these beautiful big screens then. Well, if you look here, this is the captain's side. The primary flight display, the first thing you see is that you have now an expanded horizon going through the primary flight display. Below that you have a huge compass rose, and you can see that we can now see the ground speed being shown over here, where that used to be on the navigation display before. You can also see the VOR indicators, the idents for the VORs, and up here in the left-hand side we have now something called an auxiliary area. The auxiliary area has loads of very important functions. Some of them are actually customizable for the airlines, so the airlines can decide what they want in this space. But you can already see now that you have things like the transponder call, you have the tail number, you have the clock. So while the clock used to be a digital or analog clock by itself, that clock has now disappeared and it's been replaced by the time down here. So right now in the MAX, the MAX will actually know itself when we're starting to push back and when we get back onto stand. So it will calculate our block time and our flight time based on the weight on wheel switches and the IRS position. But those of you who are a little bit interested in flying NDB holdings and VOR holdings will probably ask yourself, well, how can we time the holdings now? Or, you know, if we want to measure the time, for example, we need to be at flight level 300 at a specific time. Well, we now have a new clock switch up here, and if you hit that, that opens up the chronograph. So the chronograph will go there and it will calculate down for as long as you want it. You can stop it with the same button, and then if you want to reset it, you click it one more time and that disappears, which is kind of cool. Apart from that, there's not much more news here. If we go over to this side, there's a lot of news. So on the captain's side, this is the navigation display, and that is sharing its space together with the engine display. And as you can see, the engine display, what used to be divided into 2 screens, is now one screen like this, and you can see the flap position indicator used to be analog and now it's digital, and you have the fuel indicator as well down here. So don't ask, by the way, why this is red. It's because someone who has been using the simulator before have done some kind of failure which have left those red boxes. Basically, whenever you have red boxes on the engine instrumentation, that shows that an exceedance has happened, and this being a simulator, they must have tested something before. But this is the captain's navigation display. It looks a little bit cramped when you have to share it together with the engine display. But if you look over on the first officer side instead, you'll see that his or her navigation display is absolutely huge. And at the bottom of that navigation display, you can now put the virtual situation display, the VSD, which is going to be absolutely huge and will greatly improve the situational awareness when you're out flying, showing things like, for example, terrain,
below you, where you will end up using your current vertical speed, where you will reach the speed that you're asking for on the MCP and so on. So that's a great tool. And over here you have the PFD of the first officer with the same kind of information as the captain has. That. So if we continue then, you'll see that there's a big difference between the 737NG and the MAX when it comes to this part. Most notably is probably this landing gear lever, which used to be a huge lever on the NG, is now just this small digital lever. And instead of having 3 positions, which we have in the NG, it now has just down and up. Now, that is something that will come as a little bit of a something that we have to think about, because we are used to, in the after takeoff checklist on the NG, to go with the landing gear level from up to off. And obviously, if you would do that on the MAX, you might just inadvertently lower the landing gear. So that's something that we have to think about. This is the standby ADI that looks the same as on some of the more modern 800s that we're flying. You now have the nose wheel, the alternate nose wheel steering switch here, which used to be out on the left corner here on the captain's side before. And below that, you have a completely new panel where the old 6 screen used to be. So you see that you have the brake accumulator pressure indicator, you have the auto brake setting. You now also have on the MFD, the multiple functional display, you have an info button, and that info button will open up a whole new setting where you can go in and you can question things, like, for example, if you have some kind of APU fault or some fault that's indicated, and your maintenance control wants to know what it is, then we can go in and we can question what the fault is and get fault codes, and also get access to some information on whether or not we can actually dispatch with that fault or not. So these are completely new functions, which is going to be very, very interesting to start using. But apart from that, this looks very much like the 737NG that I'm used to. Now, why don't we have a look at how to start the engines, because there are some differences in how to start the engines as well. So let's have a look. I'll actually just start up one engine. Once again, I want to emphasize that I'm obviously sitting in a simulator here, so it's not like I'm just randomly starting an engine. So, start switch goes to ground. You can immediately see that the N2 is starting to rise. And there you see something new. It goes into motoring mode. So it motors the engine until it's ready, until it's expanded enough. And then, when the engine is ready, it will continue to go out of the motoring setting up to about 25. Let's see when that happens. There we go. Now the engine feels like it's ready. Motoring is gone. So then we can put the start switch up to idle, basically adding fuel. And the fuel ignites. You see the EGT is rising there. N2 and N1 is rising. Everything is looking normal here. Now, where a CFM56 would get starter cutout at about 56% N2, this LEAP 1 Bravo will go much higher than that. So you can see we're still up here to about 63%. There we get starter cutout. And now the engine is stabilizing itself. So what you can take from this is that it actually takes quite a lot longer to start the engine on the 737 MAX than it does on the NG. And that has to do with the drive shaft inside of the engine that needs a little time while it's being motored to kind of straighten itself out. The 737 new engines, the
The LEAP 1 Bravo engines are fantastical new engines. They give up to a 15% improvement in efficiency, but they're also quite delicate. So they do require us to take good care of them, especially during the startup sequence, but even later on when it comes to warm up and cool down before and after we've been flying. But apart from that, the MCP, where we control the autopilot, look exactly the same as on the 800. Like I was saying, the overhead panel has some smaller changes to it, and the central pedestal looks exactly the same. So that's it, guys. Like I said, if you have more questions about the 737 MAX, if you want to discuss this, we have a specific forum about the MAX inside of the Mentor Aviation app. And I would love to see as many of you as possible in there. We're about 20,000 people that are active in the app every month now. But I want to double that, and I want to double it again, because the more people that are in there to keep the discussions alive and well, the more interesting it is, and the more vibrant discussions we can get through. I am in there. Quite a few of my colleagues are in there as well, answering your questions. I am doing live streams inside of the app now, and if you have the premium feature, you'll be able to ask me questions directly during the live streams inside of the app. So use the links here below. Download the app. It's completely free to download. Make sure that you go in and you make yourself a profile, put a profile picture in there, and participate in the discussions. I would love to see you guys in there. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Then manual gear extension, landing gear lever off, manual gear extension handles pull.
Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentor and another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today in the video, guys, I'm going to show you something that I bet a lot of you guys haven't seen before. I'm going to show you how to do a manual gear extension on the 737. And I think quite a few of you are going to be quite surprised, so stay tuned.
Wind 31016, we're on right, we're on right. Third line, 31 right. Delta 260, reduce.
This video is brought to you in cooperation with our long-term sponsor, Brilliant.org. Now, when I was in school, I really was struggling with maths and physics, and I would have loved to have a tool like Brilliant next to me that would make it more fun, that would explain to me in a more intuitive and fun way how to solve difficult problems. Now, the 501st of you who uses this link here below will get 20% off the annual fee of Brilliant, but it's completely free to go and check it out, and I suggest you to do just that.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Right, guys, so manual gear extension. First of all, why would you need to manually extend the gear? Well, if you've been following my series about the 737, you know that all of the critical systems on the 737 are always backed up, right? You have something called redundancy, and that's it. That is when one system component fails, well then you need to have a different system component that can take up the slack, that can make sure that you get critical things done. And of course, getting the landing gear extended is a good thing. You know, it's nice to get landing gear out for landing. So it is a critical component, which means that it needs redundancy. Now, taking the gear up, as in retracting and extending the landing gear, is handled by hydraulic system A. The 737 has 3 different hydraulic systems. You have system A, system B, and the standby system. And generally, they work together, kind of in tandem, at least the A and B system. The standby system is a little bit apart. That jumps in if you have problems with either system. But system A and B, they kind of work together. So, for example, flight control surfaces are controlled by both of them. So if you have a loss of either hydraulic system, you'll still be able to control the aircraft using the other system. But some components inside of the hydraulic system are only managed by one of them. So, for example, the trailing edge flaps are being extended and retracted using hydraulic system B. And the landing gear is being extended and retracted using hydraulic system A. So if you have a loss of system B, well then you will have an electrical motor that is driving the trailing edge flaps. And in the case of landing gear extension, well, in that case you have Mother Nature, because they will actually use gravity to free fall into position. But of course, they're not going to free fall into position as soon as you lose the hydraulic system. That would be fatal if you're flying up high. No, instead, you might have seen that when the pilots retract the gear after takeoff, they take it all the way up. And then, as part of the after takeoff checklist, we bring the gear level from up to off. And what that means is that we're actually taking away the hydraulic forces on the landing gear. So if you have it up, well then you have the hydraulic system A retracting the gear and holding it up. But you also have mechanical up locks that goes in position and holds the gear in place. So in the after takeoff checks, when we take the gear level from up to off, what we're doing is we're taking away the hydraulic system pressure, and the gear is now resting on the mechanical locks. Okay? Now the gear is very heavy, so this means that if we would lose system A, or we would need to do a manual extension, then what we would do is we will take our quick reference handbook up. In the quick reference handbook you have all the non-normal checklists, every checklist that handles individual system malfunctions. And in here you have a checklist called manual gear extension. It also forms part of the loss of system A. You will have the same thing in there. And basically it gives you a step-by-step procedure on how to get the gear extended. It says that we need to plan for a manual gear extension. And why would you need to do that? Well, it does take a little bit longer to read through this checklist and do all the steps than it does to just take the gear down. So while we in normal cases would extend the gear maybe at 5 nautical miles away from the runway, or 4 nautical miles even if the weather is good, here you would possibly need to start with it about 10 nautical miles out, just to give you that extra time needed. You can extend the landing gear at fairly high speeds actually. Everything from 0.82, which is our maximum Mach number, to, let's see what it says here, 270 knots. You can extend the gear, right? 270 knots is a very high speed. It's going to make a lot of noise, it's going to create a lot of drag at that speed, but it's not dangerous. However, you can't retract the gear at those speeds. You actually need to reduce the speed to below 235 knots in order to retract it, and this has to do with not, damaging the actual components that are being used while the gear is being retracted. Anyway, in normal circumstances, you will be at way lower speeds than that when you're extending the gear. Without further ado, let's have a look and see how it looks like in the cockpit.
Okay, so we had to take a little bit extra time. So proceed with the deferred item checklist, please.
Deferred item checklist, approach checklist, altimeters, then manual gear extension, landing gear lever off, manual gear extension handles pull.
2500.
Train is noted.
The uplick release is when the handle is pulled to its limit. The related red landing gear indicator illuminates, indicating uplock release. Wait 15 seconds after the last manual gear extension handle is pulled. Sorry. And landing gear lever down. Down. Manual gear extension completed.
Thank you. So, continue with the deferred items landing checklist, please.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches. Continuous.
Continuous.
Speed brake armed.
Armed.
Landing gear down.
Down.
Flaps 30 green light.
Well, we're just waiting for this. So flaps, 15.
Speed check. Flaps 15 set.
And flaps 30.
Speed check.
Okay, continue checklist.
Flaps 30 plan, 30 green light.
30 and a green light.
Landing checklist complete.
Thank you.
$1,000 stabilized.
Check. High vibration, as discussed before, it's a spurious warning.
Check.
That's what we got from the tech log.
Even.
Just tell me when you see something.
Runway lights.
Thank you. Contact. Disconnecting.
Check. 500.
Check.
500.
Check.
400.
Check.
300. Approaching minimums.
Check.
200. Minimums.
Continue.
Check.
100.
You have 5 knots from the left.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Speed brakes up. 2 reversers. 73%.
Manual braking.
Auto brake disarm. 80 knots. 60 knots. Tower Mentor 360. Vacating via Echo 7.
Right, guys, that's pretty incredible, isn't it? An aircraft that's flying around in 2019 and still using physical wires that you have to pull out in order to release the physical uplocks and release the gear. Now, the thing is, though, but these kind of wires that's connected straight to the uplocks, they work, you know? This is the reason why Boeing hasn't changed it. This is the reason why Boeing are using systems like this. The same as the video that I did last week about how to manually trim the aircraft. You know, it kind of works. And as the old saying goes, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Now, if you paid attention in that clip, you would have seen that it said that in case you're using the manual gear extension, well then the landing gear will not be able to be retracted. So the reason for this is that inside of the manual extension little bracket, you know, the thing that you open, there is a micro switch. And that micro switch disables the retraction mechanism. And also, in most cases, the only reason that you would actually do a manual gear extension is because you've lost hydraulic system A, which means that there's no hydraulic system to actually raise the gear anymore. Now, this is very, very important to know, because if you are doing an approach into an airport and the weather is a little bit so maybe close to your minimums and you're not really sure that you'll be able to land, well, in that case, on a planning stage, it might be worth considering diverting to an alternate where you know that the weather is good so that you can, you know, be sure to land. Because if you end up having to go around and you won't be able to retract the gear because of the failure, well then with the gear hanging out, the aircraft is going to burn significantly more fuel and you might not have enough fuel in order to divert to an alternate. So take that into account. And I've actually had this in real life. Now, not because I had a loss of System A, but because the aircraft had been in for maintenance and they had been cleaning out that little door. We saw that already on the gate that they had done this maintenance. So we had a briefing saying that, they have been doing maintenance on the aircraft. Let's make sure that all of the circuit breakers are in and that everything is the way it should be. But we didn't think about the door. So we took off, and I was pilot monitoring at the time. The pilot flying called me to take the gear up. I raised the gear, nothing happened. So we went through the checklist, because there is a non-normal checklist in the quick reference handbook for this particular reason. And some of the first steps in that checklist was make sure that the manual gear extension door is properly closed. So we opened it up, closed it properly. Now the door obviously was closed, but the micro switch hadn't activated properly. So when we kind of pushed it down properly, well then after that we could raise the gear and continue. So these things, they do happen, and it's very important, guys, that you have the system knowledge in order to kind of have situational awareness and understand to a certain point why these things happen. Now, guys, here's a question for you. I want to do more videos from inside of the simulators. I want to show you everything that you guys want to see. But in order for me to do that, I need to know what it is that you guys are interested in. So in the comments below, what I would like you to do right now is go like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and put the notification bell if you want more of this, but also go in and give me a comment. Tell me what you would like to see. Would you like me to do more emergency maneuvers? Would you like me to do more normal maneuvers or anything else that I can show you? Because I want to really show you everything that we have inside of this fantastic commercial aviation world. Now, I would like to send a fantastic thank you